Here we are.
Yes, we are.
The Broken City podcast is now back after a long, long hiatus.
What happened during the hiatus?
Well, I think I got a little fatter. Had a few depressive episodes, a couple anxious episodes.
I don't want to hear that.
I wrote, the good stuff?
Yeah. Skip to the good stuff.
Wrote some music that wasn't good, so that's bad.
Can we hear those bad songs?
Here's what happened between the two. Between, the last episode and this episode. You're here.
Woo!
Who are you?
Who is this?
Who is this guy?
Who am I?
This is Cory Clark.
Hi.
Old pal and good
old
buddy. I've known you 20 years-ish.
Yeah.
So we met when we were 1 year old.
I like one time you were telling somebody this and you said back in the 90s. And I was like, whoa. I guess it was.
Late
90s.
That's crazy.
Every time I hear 90s now, it feels like so nostalgic.
Bunch of millennials just push stop on the podcast. Yeah, that was...
The 90s.
Yeah, we shared a mutual girlfriend, not at the same time.
I don't know if you should say we shared a girlfriend.
We didn't share. We
did, but it was like 10 years apart. More than 10 years, maybe?
Yeah. I was currently dating her, and you had dated her years
I had her first,
before.
so...
I had your seconds.
Yep.
Anyways, that's how we met. Yep. And it kind of went through music, right?
Well, you're being very modest. It was a girl that I knew for a long time. I dated, and then we were just friends for forever, ever.
Yeah.
And then she was dating you, and she was like, "You have to hear this guy Adam's music. You would love it." Especially, like, she knew that I would dig it. And we were like in a band together at the time.
She had bad taste.
She knew my taste, and I was like, oh, whatever, I want to hear boyfriend's music.
Yeah, why would she do that? It sounds like a bad idea.
It does sound weird. I mean, but at that point, we had been friends for I dated her in high school, so we were in our we were probably in early 20s at that point.
Yeah.
And so she's like, let's go to your car. You know her.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're allowed to mention names here, but she's very forceful, and she's like, let's go in your car and listen to it right now. So we did.
Wow.
I was like, right away, I was like, oh, I get it. And I know why you listen to this. And so I fell in love with your music before I fell in love with you.
This is a love story, people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was a fan, and then we kind of became friends.
The thing that stands out the most is that I assumed if you were that into my music and I had my insecurities about it, that I couldn't imagine that maybe I knew you were a musician, but I was like, he's probably not very good. Maybe he's just...
If I liked your music, I wasn't very good.
I don't know. There's something about that. And so I remember I thought you were a cool guy, and I remember you would have vivid memory of burning CDRs for you. And
Custom.
you were adamant about paying for them.
Yeah.
And I always felt this guilt, sort of like, this thing cost me $1 and you're wanting to pay $10 each. And I was kind of stoked. But
it was a CD with at least 5 songs, at least, each time.
And I felt morally obligated to have a problem with that, but I also was stoked you were buying it. But I remember saying to you, dude, I mean, maybe pay for 1 and I'll give you 5. But you were like...
Didn't care. I was a fan.
There's an ethic. It was super cool.
Well, why not? I mean...
But I remember then I think you might have done a coffee house gig with me. I did a set and invited you to do a set at the Starbucks on the corner of Tribuco and El Toro down in Mission Viejo.
I never played there with you, but I came and watched you a bunch of times.
You must have sat in then, because I remember hearing you sing there.
Oh, maybe.
And I was like, this guy's better than me.
What? I don't even remember.
I like how music is a competition when you're young like that. Everything's, at least for me, maybe that's why.
I think that's a good topic too, because it never was for me. That's just not my personality. I was never sports indoctrinated with competition person. So I just don't have that in me. But I have known a lot of people that see music as a sport and oh, this is our team and we have to win and I'm gonna
It's funny what it is. I think for me, at least, the competitive aspect of music is rooted just in, I think, insecurity and finding yourself in it, and then also for me, like songwriting and singing, when I discovered doing it, or that I had sort of a aptitude for it, I guess, early on, or a need to do it, it was like, ooh, like this is my identity. So when your identity gets wrapped up into it, your value gets wrapped up into it.
Right.
And then when your value gets wrapped up to it, you go like, well, what value do I have compared to that guy's value? Because your value ends up being like sort of, there's a way to play well and there's a way to play crappy in an objective sense and in a subjective sense. So I think there's all these different layers when you're making music of like, are people going to think this is good? And then are people just going to like it and whatever? And then if you hear somebody else that's like a contemporary, like somebody who's your age or whatever, and you have all your insecurities and it's your identity, and somebody else is maybe a better singer or a better player or is making better recordings or whatever, that whole identity, value, what's good, what's bad thing gets all mushed up into one big soup. Right. And then you get competitive. But it's really more insecurity than it is. Because you were on like a higher Zen level of support, maybe. Or
yes, but then that's my own insecurity too. Like
you just count yourself out.
If I'm really honest with it, yeah. Like, because if I'm not gonna be competitive in my head, then I don't have to, I don't have to like compare myself or something. Maybe that's part of it. But like you said, it all gets wrapped up. That's a good point, because if you're making music and you're being creative, then it's completely subjective. Somebody can connect with it or not, or whatever, but the technical aspect is a whole other side to music. So it's almost like you can judge that. You can judge the technical stuff. Right. Like, is this guy great? Is this guy a good guitar player? Or is he a hack? But then again, that doesn't really matter if the song's great, if it connects. So there's like this weird technical side where you can kind of be, judge yourself against other people. Yeah. But then the other creative part of it is like, for me, that's like hands off. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, this song isn't better than that song necessarily. Which,
I mean, ironically enough, that's what drew me to singing and songwriting, is like, oh, here's an area where like, it's a safe place to put all your vulnerabilities and everything about yourself, and that like there is a hugely subjective zone to it, which kind of threw me out of my perfectionism, which like
that's interesting.
I came up as a drummer and I had sort of like perfectionized myself out of loving it. Because I was like, if my time isn't perfect, if my groove isn't rock solid, like if it, my time isn't metronomically perfect, then I suck. Yeah. And singing and songwriting was like, oh, wow, I can just put my subjective stuff into this, and like that has a value that kind of transcends that stuff. But inevitably, since it's who I am, it bled into it.
Yeah, you can get caught up with that too. And especially as a singer, anybody can caught up, oh, I hate that little thing in my voice, or I hate, I'm not doing this technically right or whatever. But even that is weird, because sometimes the best, and I shouldn't say best, see, there's that thing again, but like some of your favorite singers are not doing it right, but like the intricacies of their voice or whatever is what you love. Like, it's like it shouldn't be perfect. Like, if somebody sang perfectly, it would be probably like an opera singer or something, right? Like, they're doing it all perfectly, but that doesn't mean that you're gonna connect with it or the song, even if it's technically perfect.
That's just weird, man. Looking out from within, you just see what is. So like, you can go like Bob Dylan. Some people love him, some people hate him, but he's cool because he is what it is. And then a lot of times you see somebody's, the confidence they show, and then you just accept it for what it is, love it or hate it, think it's good or bad, or in the middle. But I think at least all my struggles tended to be rooted in where I felt like I could be or should be. So like, I was never really accepting where I was. It was always like, yeah, but I mean, I know when my time fluctuates a little bit, and I just like shame myself for it.
Right. And it's obvious, right? It's more obvious when it's a technical thing. You're like, oh, I
that's true. Yeah. Same with like singing. Like, oh, I knew that note was a little flat or a little sharp. And when you know that's happening, it's much different, because it's like a goal you could reach and you didn't. But when people just hear you doing something, they just go, yeah, that's the guy who plays like that, with this level of imperfection, and they just sort of accept it and maybe, few people care as much, I think, about perfection than the
As you
people as you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely a weird.
What do you think about that?
psychological
What do you think the role of just pure blind confidence plays in, especially singing, but playing one of you, like your own songs in front of people?
Oh man, two big things come up when you say that. I think I have a theory. I don't even know if it raises to the level of theory. It's more of just a thought that manifests as a finger.
As a twiddling finger.
I have a theory that a lot of the people who are the most successful in any field have some sort of personality, at minimum quirk, but I think at maximum like an actual personality disorder, like egomania or narcissism.
Yeah.
So that their confidence is so high that they're impervious to criticism.
Right. Is that a good thing?
I think it's a thing that is a hallmark of successful people.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So it's good in that sense. It's good in the sense of being successful.
if that's all that matters. Yeah.
But maybe not interpersonally or the way you deal with other people or whatever.
I feel like success, first of all, you have to define it. There's a million ways to define success, but it's at least, it's below, I think, people or relationships. So if you get success by stepping on other people in whatever way that is, then why are you stepping on people? And I think in the cases of super successful people, I think it's that money is more important than relationships. So get out of my way.
Mm-hmm.
You're either with me or you're against me.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's that there's that competitive side of like, I think a really egomaniac, narcissistic person is like everybody is a competitor and everybody's either an enemy or an ally. And that kind of single-minded thinking and the confidence it gives you, like the traits of narcissism have to do with, you know, like it's like, isn't it like a Greek god, Narcissist or whatever? Narcissus.
Yeah.
But it's
woman,
about like looking into the lake and like seeing your own reflection and going
yeah.
like, oh, there's nothing better than that. And so, like, you know, I think instantly of Kanye West when I think of a successful
pure
person with
confidence.
narcissism or narcissistic traits.
Yeah.
But what that does is just, you know, if whoever doesn't like me is an idiot,
Right.
or stupid,
So it's a good thing.
or they don't get it, whatever it is, and whoever
slow you
likes
down.
me is cool.
It doesn't
Yeah.
ever slow you down. It never, because I have the opposite. I have like zero self-esteem, but you know, and it stops me sometimes from doing things. Just too much judging going on of myself, and I always think that like I wish I could just be that good. I wish I could just be Kanye West, and just
Do you?
not. Yeah, totally. Well,
Why?
I wouldn't. I wish I could turn it on and turn it off, I guess.
There you
Because I
go.
wouldn't want to live in that. I don't want to drive around, be one of those people that's on the freeway that everyone else is an idiot because they're not driving how you want them to drive. You ever notice that?
Yeah.
People get the road rage thing, and it's like instantly people will just call other people idiots right away.
Yeah.
I've seen everybody I know that's a crazy driver. That's the first thing they do is like, what is this idiot doing? Like, move, idiot. Everybody's stupid. It's like, they're not stupid. They're just trying to drive on the same road as
Yeah,
you.
they're not
It's
people.
hard.
They're just a thing in a car.
Yeah.
They're just a car. Well, here's the thing: is like you say, like I wish I could turn it off, turn it on. That's almost like if you're able to turn it on, I guess at the highest level, that means you're just in that zone, or what do they call that? They call it the zone, but it's also like a flow state. That's when you're the most confident, when you're just, there's no insecurity, there's no part of yourself watching what you're doing. And that's ultimate confidence that's not rooted in ego, I think, is when you're just everything
Right.
that you are and you're just doing it.
That's true.
And that I think you can learn to turn on and off to some degree, or
For
turn
sure.
it on. You can learn to turn it on. But I just think that those people that have that trait, it's for some reason who they are. Maybe not enough hugs when they were a kid,
Sure.
or whatever it was that makes them just, I'm going to prove myself to the whole world, and I'm great no matter what anybody thinks. You know, and I think it's in like psychological attachment theory and stuff. There's some sort of injury when they were a kid, when they needed acceptance, they didn't get it, or something happened.
But it works. But people use it. I mean, look at we just said we weren't going to talk about politics, but I mean, that's the president that we have. Like, that's what I see is just uber confidence.
Right.
So much so that it's like delusional.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even care what anybody. Why would I care what anybody thinks?
It's that combined too with the posturing and the false confidence that maybe a really high level negotiator needs to have, like the willingness to just walk away.
But I watch people like that, and I always think like, are they thinking in the back of their head? Are they questioning? They're probably not. But if it was me, I would be like.
Yeah, and I've heard stories about Trump being a pretty different guy one-on-one. So I just wonder how much of it's an act. I think for sure that he's got a lot of narcissistic egomania traits.
But it's also an act. I mean, he's a TV star.
Yeah.
You know, you have to know how to turn it on if you're going to be the star of a TV show.
And at that level of success too, there's a basic level of IQ that goes along with it. And IQ is like it's fluid intelligence. So like it's intelligence that goes everywhere. You know what I mean? It's like relational street smarts. It's you know, mathematical intelligence, spatial.
Yeah, dealing with people, interpersonal
dealing with people,
stuff.
like all that stuff. So I think people don't give him enough credit for that part, that he's actually really smart, but I think he puts it to use in a lot of manipulative ways, and you know, whatever, willing to lie, whatever it is that he does.
Pander.
I don't really pay attention. But
everybody else
here's the
is
thing.
paying too much attention.
Yeah.
Stop watching the news, people.
I just know that I got enough to handle in my immediate circle, about
I know,
3
that's
feet
how
around
I feel.
me.
I don't need any more chaos, you know.
I know, that's horrible. My dad was telling me last night that I better go out and vote on Tuesday. Yeah. And right when he said it, I was like, but I don't vote. Like, I just feel like this is totally a cop-out, but I just sort of feel like I don't know enough about both sides of anything
to make one vote. So that's the thing. It's like black and white.
Yes.
When you vote, there's no, I can kind of give you 50% of my ideas, and then, you know, because that's how I always see both sides of things, or I try to.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, everything is gray to me, in hopefully in a good way. Sometimes it's annoying in my own brain, but yeah, when you're voting, we're telling people not to vote. That's what you're doing, though. You're making a definitive 100%. It's kind of that personality thing that we were just talking about. Someone that's completely confident, like, I know 100%. This is my black and white vote. Bam.
And not all issues are black and white. And maybe there are issues that are like, obviously that's, you know, the majority of people can see like, oh, well, that's a bad idea that politicians are trying to whatever, or pull the wool over in your eyes. Like, we should all get up and vote for that thing. So I know there are those issues. I don't want to like paint it with one brush, but it does feel like that, though, that like you hear so much about laws that are passed and the headline is this, but then in the fine print, you're actually voting for the opposite thing you thought you were, or they're sneaking some other policy in with that one. Yeah. And I just feel like that aspect of it, it's like, I'm not informed enough to make that kind of like,
well, even if you
vote,
are, my thing in this, every time I've ever voted, I've always regretted who I voted for. Not always, but most of the time.
Really?
Yeah, because if you're voting for a person, you know, everybody says they're going to do a certain thing, and then they might not be able to do it because it's too hard to do it once you get in the office, or they just don't, or they change something, and then you're like, I voted for you, and now you're not doing what I was hoping. So it's like, well, you can't control someone just because you vote for them, you know?
I sent you a text the other day, and you said, yes, we can. And then I responded with the Obama picture that says, yes, we can. And I look at that, and I'm like, yeah, what?
Yeah.
Yes, we can what? What was he even talking about?
I always thought it was like, yes, we can have a president
who's black.
Which is true. We could. Well, I think that was probably the bigger message. And it was amazing. Like I
mean, that was a brilliant marketing campaign, because he's so presidential. Yeah. The dude's undeniably,
and it was a big thing. I remember watching the inauguration, and he came out with his family, and watching a black president come out. I teared up. I was like, wow, this is a story. Everybody felt like it was a historical moment. Yeah.
Love him, hate him, somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think it'd be cool if he was on some money.
If he what?
I don't know.
Oh, if he was on money.
Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know what money.
Totally.
Maybe invent like a $75 bill and put Obama on it. We do need to do that, though. We need to update the pictures, I think.
I know,
money.
they are getting a little old.
Maybe
Wasn't there a recent one?
Who should be on Bitcoin? Trump? Digital? That's one we can swap out easily, is Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's right. We could change the image.
But that's worldwide money, so it would need to be a worldwide leader.
Oh, right.
So you can't put God on Bitcoin. That's a little too much.
A little heavy-handed.
Yeah, and how do we vote? For which God?
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Back to the you're not confident thing. I've never...
Me personally, or just...
You personally.
Oh, right.
Like, this is a personal attack on you.
Bring it on.
I'm attacking you with an encouragement or something. Like
A love bomb?
A love bomb. So that, like, I've never experienced... okay, you're an enigma. That's what it is.
Wrapped in
I've never...
tortilla.
Yeah, wrapped in a tortilla with black beans. You're just... I don't experience you as somebody who is not confident.
Good.
In fact, the opposite.
Good.
But, shoot, I don't want to...
Bring it on. Because I feel like I definitely don't show it. You know?
So you're a good
Maybe
actor.
I've learned...
You should be confident in your acting skills then. Maybe that's the thing.
For me personally, I've always been really shy. I was shy growing up and just withdrawn and...
Introverted? Or
picked on for being like the skinny kid, and so then I played guitar, and it was like, oh, that made me like cool with people in high school and whatever. That was the one thing I had. But other than that, you know, so I just had to learn, and this was just through like, you know, random crappy job after crappy job, just having to deal with people that are like kind of bullyish, and you know what I mean. I've had to learn how to do it. It doesn't. It's not natural for me.
Interesting, but I think maybe your confidence is like in that it's somewhere rooted maybe in intelligence or something. You just kind of like, well, I know what
maybe.
I know I think I suck, and you can't convince me otherwise.
And I'm confident about it.
Maybe that's the confidence. So I think that's called humility, right? Confidence that you're not great is humility. If it's not total insecurity, I don't know.
That's quite a definition. I don't know. It
doesn't sound right.
Pretty clinical. I'll say yes. Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you feel, or I don't know how to ask that question. How do you feel? Well, okay, when do you feel the most confident when you're doing musical, anything creative? Like when, is it back to that whole flow state thing where you just try to be in the moment and you get rid of yourself?
Yeah, well, that's like in hindsight. I go, wow, that's when I was the most confident, because when I can look back and go, I was clearly in a flow state because 6 hours just went by and it felt like nothing, or I was, you know, and that's one of the hallmarks of a flow state, I think. But then also, when I look at what the results of that, and that's part of why I love, you know, recording music and making music, because it's a document of something. But it's very easy to go to look at, oh, here's what was created when I didn't even remember what I was creating, which is a definite thing. Like I have a really bad memory anyway, but the songs I think that I feel were the most hit the target, I guess, for myself the most, were the ones where I'm like, it's almost like I didn't even do that. I don't remember how that happened, and I don't know how to play it, so that sucks because I could never play this live. I have to go back and learn it. But I can see like, there's sort of a feeling about that that's a little elevated above something that you put a lot of thought into, and there was a lot of questioning and going back and forth, which tends for me to happen more in the realm of like business and when I'm getting hired to do something, because you inevitably are going after a target that's not really of your creation. So you're kind of like,
specific.
You have to remember like, oh, what are they looking for? And then there's a certain amount of insecurity in that mixed with the confidence that, oh, maybe I can hit that target for them. So I guess that would be when I feel the most confident. But then there's also a certain amount of confidence that comes just, I guess, from preparation or having done something so much. But whenever I feel like I'm being put on the chopping block, or here's a good example is like mixing or something. Like I know how I like things to sound, and I'm
big and fat.
it's been like my a big part of my career has been doing a lot of different genres and whatever, and trying to understand what makes each genre, subgenre, or even each artist special, and what they see as I feel like every genre has a subjective, a bunch of rules wrapped up into it that are sort of stylistic, and they're subjective, but the people who are in it think it's objective. There's like this accepted sense of like, this is what's good, this is what's cool, this is what's acceptable, and if you venture outside that, you're now becoming this other thing that's not part of our little club. Right. Whether it's hip hop or rock or pop or alternative, or I think the more esoteric and hipster you get, the more rules there are. So I've kind of made it my goal to figure out, like, almost deconstruct that, and then when you're in the process of doing it, you try to understand it and allow that to be your set of rules. So when I'm mixing, to get back to the point of all that, like, I make it sound how I think it should sound. Like, this is what I like. And then the moment it comes time for somebody to hear it, I'm like, man, it is so easy to pick out any part of this mix and go, what? And have a case. And if they're in their little their supposed objective box, I'm wrong. So like, and since my identity is wrapped up in what I do, when they say, I even said it just now, I'm wrong, which really it's not just like, that's not what I wanted.
But that's how it feels.
But that's how it feels. And then since I take everything I do so personally, and it's so important to me, I'm easily like, oh, I can get defensive. Like they might be talking about the snare drum. I feel like they're talking about me and my worth as a person. Or I feel, so that's when I'm the least confident, is like, interesting, when I know that there's this subjective line that could be perceived as objective, and it's like, and I've made a decision. You're putting yourself out there. And I think that's the hardest thing about music, is the more personal it is, and the more
it hurts.
The more it hurts when you put yourself out there and people don't get it, or they judge it, or whatever it is. It's just like, I feel like they don't get me and they're judging me.
Oh, totally. I've been there for sure.
But that's better. It's better that it's a piece of work, I guess, because there are other songs and I can write more new ones.
Right. Yeah. But that's funny too, because doesn't it always feel, I don't know, maybe not for you, but it always feels like when I write a song or record a song or finish something, I feel like there's a lot of stake in just that one, but like you said, it's just one song.
Yeah.
But I always feel like this is so important, that this one piece of music.
Well, there's only one right now, and that's right?
Maybe that's what it is. Like, it's just in your brain to just think, this is the most important thing right now, because it is right now, or whatever.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be, I mean, there's this implicit idea that the thing that you've done, like, you're only as good as your last song, kind of.
Yeah, that thing.
Because, like, I don't want to come out with a record that I know deep down, like, my new record, if I'm working on it or something, this is actually one of the hallmarks of whether or not I am ready to put out a record or start putting the final touches on a record. It's like, I have to feel like I've gone forward.
Yeah.
And I think there are times where I'll be like, yeah, I have enough songs for a record, but I'll be like, if I put those songs out, I feel like one of my past records might be actually a better record. Like, and that can be like a thought I have that makes me go, I need more songs. I need to keep writing.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's something, even though I'm proud of all these, when you put them all together, it doesn't have as much weight as some of my last stuff or something. So then I'll just keep I'll just go, I'm not ready.
How many times have you done that, where you have like a batch of songs that's going to be the record, and then you feel like it's missing one thing, and then you write a song for that thing? You ever done that?
Yeah.
Like, to finish a record, I need this one to start the record, or I need something that does this in the batch.
I think it's that does this, because this past record was like that. I was like,
what was the song?
There were two songs, three. Like, I had enough songs to have the record. I always overwrite. I write more than I need, but there was definitely a feeling that the record would have been out of balance if there's a certain kind of, like, I don't know, there's some kind of recipe I have for when I feel like I have an album. And it has to do with sort of going through a period in my life and kind of hitting all the things that I am or something.
Oh, right. So it's more autobiographical almost.
Yeah, it's like this. Here's a picture of my life, and I've hit a real low. I've hit a real high. I've hit a real confusion state. I've hit a real kind of transcendent state, or I've been in a place of contemplating the larger things in life. I've been super focused on a small thing. I've been through a crisis. Like I never really thought about it that way, but I think that's sort of it.
And you feel like that the record has to have that.
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of what the only reason to make a record is to have like a, man.
The only reason, here comes.
Here, I know,
Everyone
right?
listen.
I just caught myself being Mr.
You stopped too.
I did. That's why. But that's
Silence. Everybody be quiet. We're going to hear. The only reason to make a record. Go.
Is to make a record.
Ah, that's kind of a letdown.
Zen. No, my idea, my personal idea of like what a great record is for a solo artist is one that really captures that person at that time.
At the time, yeah.
So like honest and like, otherwise why not just release single after single after single? There's a reason why you're putting it together, especially now when you can.
When you don't have to
when
have
you
a
don't
record.
have to.
Yeah.
So for me, the justification for having a record is to have a batch of songs that work together but weren't contrived as one thing. These aren't like
cool.
These aren't
like a concept.
It's not a concept
one
album.
Giant song or whatever.
Yeah, because then the tail's wagging the dog. You're like, oh, this is a rock opera. I need the third act. You know,
right.
But in an emotional, psychological sense, or emotional, intellectual, psychological, all that stuff, spiritual. Here's what happened: is I felt like I had a bunch of songs, and then I had like 8 songs that I was really okay. These are going on the record, and I felt like I hadn't hit that reflective thing. So basically, what happened is I wrote a song, the title track, "When a Heart Wakes Up," and that one kind of hit that target of. And it's funny because it wasn't created because I needed it, but it came out and I'm like, oh, this is what was kind of missing. And then I'm like, but now that with these other songs feels out of balance. And then I kept thinking about like I hadn't really found a musical place for my spiritual journey, I guess. I hadn't really written about that. And I had it in my head. I don't know. Anyway, so I wrote the song "Back to Earth," which is another kind of solo acoustic thing. I guess that too. There wasn't like an intimate moment yet on the record. So "Back to Earth" and "When a Heart Wakes Up" were the 2 moments. That's like one of my favorite things to do is just mainly guitar and vocal.
Totally vulnerable.
Totally vulnerable, naked, and just where. And the songs,
it's so scary.
Just meant to be that.
That's your favorite?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite thing to perform too. It's just
I'll say that it's one of my favorite things to hear when your favorite artist puts out a song like that. It's just totally stripped down. I think I think everybody would not everybody would agree, but most people.
You did it.
Did I make a blanket statement? No, but like it's pretty universally accepted that if one guy or one girl sits down at a piano or the guitar and sings. Anybody, even if you don't like that genre of music, is like, whoa, something special is happening because there's nothing to hide behind.
Yeah.
That's the most scary. And singing is the most vulnerable thing. You know, people say public speaking is like the #1 fear. Try public singing. It's like you're just adding all these layers of like, you're thinking about how you sound, you're thinking about the room, you're thinking about your voice, you're thinking about how you...
If you're doing it wrong, that's what you're thinking about, yeah.
Right. You shouldn't be thinking about any of that stuff.
No, but that's the stuff that you are basically forced to get over thinking about. Because I don't know. At least maybe people who aren't just those kind of singer who just like, they open their mouth and it comes out perfect.
Yeah.
But
that's rare.
I was going to say something about that too.
You're just talking about your favorite thing is those kind of songs.
Yeah, and I think that stems from the fact I started singing late. I think at least by singer standards, like I didn't really start singing and saying like I am singing until I was like 19.
Is that late? I guess that's late.
I don't know. I mean, the singers I work with that are great. Like, oh wow, you're amazing. Right? It's like, oh yeah, I was singing before I could talk. You know, like there's that every time. Usually it's girls. Too,
I was just gonna say it's usually girls, right?
Yeah, they're 2 or 3 years old. They were singing.
Yeah.
It does seem to be more rare.
Is that why girls are better singers than guys?
Maybe so.
Just the time period.
They don't have Adam's apples either. I think there's something physical going on.
Yeah, there's definitely.
We have more junk in there.
There's all this stuff that gets in the way. Even talking, like I can feel my throat. I'm always trying to not feel my throat work.
Yeah, you have quite an Adam's apple.
Well, I got a lot to get around.
I should have one. It is my namesake. A Cory apple. That's what they call it. No, but I think that starting late and not being a technically gifted singer, but I felt like what drew me to singing was like, ooh, that's going to be an avenue for expression. Like it was really like when I sang and when I went to write something, I like really knew how I wanted it to be. Like how I wanted my voice to sound. I wanted to sing the word, like what the melody was and how.
I think that's how your voice comes across too, if I can, as a fan.
Oh, wow.
It's like all emotion. I shouldn't say all emotion, but it's very like visceral, the way you sing. My wife said you have she loves your voice. She said, what was it? She coined the tragically beautiful. That's what she always says about it. I was like, yeah, it's kind of perfect. Compliment.
It definitely, I mean, can't really speak to that other than it's like the need is so intense. I feel like and maybe this is kind of for all artists that really feel like they have to do it. For me, it's like there are things that are going on inside of me that can only come out when I sing. So to me, it's like a life raft. It's like that's the thing, or it's a rope. I'm down in a tunnel, and the rope out to light is like I have to sing this.
What does that mean?
It's not going to come out.
I've heard you say that before. What does that actually mean? Do you mean like the feeling of doing it, or just the feeling of getting an idea out or something?
It's funny.
I only asked that because
I made an art piece called Intermittent Isolation Syndrome. It's like it was like half kidding.
IIS, yeah.
But I have IIS. But
it's like IBS.
It's it's equally painful and crappy.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Good pun. First pun of the podcast, people.
It cures the isolation for a second. Because it's like, here's a bunch of stuff that I can't somehow connect with somebody on or express. And if I write a song and sing it, then I feel like it's like, that's the therapeutic aspect of it. So much comes out and I feel like, oh, this is the only way to do it. And then the other thing was, from a technical sense too, like I've spent my whole singing started it was... It's like recording my singing was always the point.
Right.
So I've always sung with headphones on, with my vocal really loud, and every nuance counted.
Interesting.
And I've noticed throughout my career, the people who are more like that tour a ton, and maybe their basic premise for being a singer-songwriter is to perform.
Yeah.
Often there's this the first 10% of nuance in their vocal is ignored because they're always doing it live. So if they sing a note and end that little bit that nobody's ever going to hear at a club or a show,
right? It all gets picked up in the mic.
They don't really use that part of their voice. And for me, like I was always like, ooh, it's all about that little stuff. Like
it really is with recording,
where the S is placed and how the S sounds and all those little nuances are what makes things either really special and honest or whatever. It's like vocabulary. It's like if you're using that level of nuance, you just have more words.
Yeah,
more
to express what you're trying to express.
Totally.
I'm actually the opposite. I spent all my time learning to sing, doing it live, and then went to record. I remember like the first time I was like really singing in a recording studio. It was terrifying. I was actually singing harmony. Like the first time I ever put headphones on and with like a good mic and a compressor.
Yeah.
And it just sounded so weird to me because it was all right there. And you hear every little pitchy, whatever. And I just remember going, I can't do this. This is so weird. But I also think that's the best thing for us, for any, especially that kind of a singer that sings live a lot, is just start recording yourself, even if you don't ever show anybody, because, you know, like you're saying, you hear every little thing, and it's the best way to get rid of your bad habits. Because another problem with the live singers, you know, is you just get these really weird habits, and you can hear it in certain singers, like
that's true,
the way they trail off, or they always do this one little thing, and it's just, they don't notice it because you have a band behind you when you're playing live, and there's a room, and there's energy from the crowd. You don't think about it.
And there are pluses and minuses. Yeah. And there are pluses and minuses to that sort of regimen, because you need to be able to sing every night. So there are things like, I find that those singers end up being like rock solid. Like from the first take, you're getting stuff that's at least a B+, because, you know, like they're usually really solid, and you can tell that they're in shape as a singer.
They're used to just stepping up to the mic and just belting.
Yeah. But you need to pull out that, like, no, I want every take to be different and special, and like sing it half as loud, and sing it, you know, come at it from a different angle. Like, you know, they're used to making sure that there's a certain amount of projection.
Right.
But also there's those other things that can reveal whatever that first 10% of nuance is. There could be a bunch of problems there, or there could be a bunch of potential. Or whatever, you don't know.
Or for me, like, it's just stuff that you don't want to hear. And you hear yourself back, and you're like, oh, why am I doing that thing?
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, I've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you got, but it's a great way to, like I say, like and it's so easy to record yourself on on your computer. I think every singer should spend time. That's how I like tune up my voice too. Like when we were, whatever band I was in, like if we went to a recording, it was like a vocal day or whatever, I would spend time at home just singing into the mic and just
with
checking.
Headphones on?
Yeah, just recording stuff just to kind of check, you know.
All you non-singers out there have already tuned out.
Huh?
No, yeah, that's a good. It's funny. I never tried that. Well, I've done very little touring, so I want to do that.
Honestly, I would always do that before we had to do like a vocal session or whatever that I felt was important. Or I do these cover gigs, you know. I do like 3-hour-long gigs, just an acoustic guitar and vocal. I just do covers and, you know, corporate stuff and private parties and stuff. But that is the best way to get your voice in shape, because first of all, you're just singing other people's songs, and then you're singing for 3 hours. Yeah. Every time I do that, I walk away just like, it's just so effortless to sing after those kind of gigs. Yeah. So there was a time when my old band Ages, we were recording with a big producer, and before we did vocal day, I was just trying to book those kind of gigs just to kind of like get my chops up. Totally works.
I remember hearing Stewart Copeland talk about that with like, he always wished they would go record a Police album right when they got off tour.
Yeah, that's
and he's like, I always feel like basically every Police record is like me like not in shape as a drummer.
Right, yeah. And it's a different environment too. If you just sit down in a studio, if you're used to being out playing live, playing clubs or whatever, it's a little bit less comfortable probably.
Yeah, it's true. Singing's weird, man. When your voice is in your body.
Yeah.
It's just...
That's what makes it so great though, when you feel, because you can't help but feel it. You can't help but feel what you're singing or the song.
Yeah.
One thing that really has always annoyed me, I've been in a bunch of bands throughout my life, and then had my own bands and whatever. And I have a lot of musician friends they're just players, you know, working on their craft. They're just drummers. They're just a bass player. I'm just a guitar player, whatever. Guys that don't sing, it just drives me crazy. It's like, because do you think everybody can sing? Do you think it's like anybody can do it? Man. I don't mean be a great singer.
Everybody can make a sound. Sing. Well, not everybody, but most people can make.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like, is tone deaf real?
I mean, anybody that doesn't sing always says, I can't sing. But then you hear people say, like, anybody can do it. If you can talk, you can sing. Basically, it doesn't mean you're going to sound great or whatever. Yeah. I only bring that up because I know a lot of musicians that are like, no, I don't sing. I just play my instrument. It's like, dude, you have to learn you have to do it.
It's true.
It not only makes you a better musician too, because if you can sing the notes that you're hearing that you can play, it's all kind of one thing.
You know what? I think the world would be a better place if everybody worked on singing a little and everybody learned how to play a little bit of drums.
Drums? Why drums? I didn't see that coming.
I'm just
want to hit something?
I'm laying this down, man. This is my objective, subjective idea, is that I'm completely biased because I'm a drummer first.
Right.
But I feel like here's a couple reasons. One, like what you were just saying, like everybody can sing, and if you can't, there's something going on. Like I've heard that tone deafness is actually a myth and that it's actually just fear. Mm-hmm. Which I don't believe, because I think, of course, there's so many different kinds of people with so many different kinds of mental issues that are small and big. So yeah, there's probably some people who can't distinguish pitch enough to know the difference between two notes. For sure. Whatever. There's got to be that out there.
But
it's probably pretty rare.
Yeah.
But that your vocal apparatus is one of the things that like is probably it's so reactive to emotion. Like, you know, try having
if you're choked
a
up.
basic normal conversation if you're really crying, or like it responds to emotion because that's how we relate.
Right.
And through speech.
And fear is such a powerful emotion.
Yeah.
It's going to just closes your throat up.
Yeah. We've all, like when you're a little kid and you like wake up from a bad dream and try to scream for your mom and only air comes out.
Ooh.
Does that ever happen to you?
No, I don't have bad dreams.
Mom! I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I think it's just you.
But yeah, and that's the problem with, here's total sidebar, but pop singing gets a bad rap in the world of like professional, maybe opera singing or Broadway, or when you hear somebody who's trained as an opera or Broadway singer, they tend to be weird pop singer.
Yeah.
But pop singers tend to have a lot of vocal issues, and I think it's because pop singing is more closely related to speech, and we put on a pedestal emotional expression over anything else. Whereas in these other disciplines, it's about having a strong voice that can survive or that can project without a mic, or diction's really important, being understood. And so the training builds you up into this thing that's like, you're a very powerful voice, and other things are very important, let's say.
Or come first.
Or come first, yeah, or just higher up on the hierarchy, I guess, of importance. But a pop singer, it's like, you think about a great rock singer, and it's like if you're singing an intensely emotional song that's angry and you embody that in your voice, chances are that's not something you can sustain night after night after night after night. And that's why pop singers are prone to nodules and vocal issues, is because, I mean, if you're gonna get into those kinds of emotions and really express them, they're not healthy for your voice.
Yeah.
But it's healthy for your art in a sense that it's honest. Right. So anyways, that's I've struggled with that, because I think there are things that and there are voices that people, millions and millions of people love, and it's a flawed technique.
Yeah.
You'll hear lots of, like Adele, I remember when she's considered to be a great singer, but she got nodes, and from going to vocal lessons, and I've been scoped at the doctor for,
oh really?
You know, I was afraid I had nodes at one point or whatever. I kind of learned some of the things that you can hear in a voice that's sounds great, but is actually really unhealthy singing. And one of the things is there's a vocal instructor named Ron Anderson. His vocal lessons are astronomical amount of money per hour, and he's, you know, taught a bunch of amazing singers. And one of the worst things you can do is like sing on your vocal cords.
Is that when you can kind of feel your throat?
Feel that the vibration is happening on the chords. And what you really want, which is, this comes from classical, is to resonate in your head. Like you want to push the tone forward. They call it like in the mask, But when you're singing on your chords, I think early Adele, Gavin DeGrasse, another one that comes to mind. These are their tone is really rooted in this thing's like it's like down on there. And so I remember going, man, we're rabbit trailing, but I remember going to Ron Anderson and showing him the recording of my song Invisible Enemies during the Fallborn years. And he's listening to the verse, and this is his first time hearing me, and I'm sitting there with him next to the piano.
awkwardly watching.
Yeah. And he's like on the board of the Metropolitan Opera, but he's like giving lessons to Chris Cornell and Adam Levine and all these people. And actually, after my lesson, Anthony Kiedis walked in. He was like the next lesson. and he's hearing the verse, and it's like kind of in a lower register. He's like, oh, very nice. It's a very nice instrument.
He said that?
He said that. I was like, oh, this is going really well. So cool. And then right when the chorus kicked in, he went, no.
Turn it off. I can't hear it.
He's like, visible in a maze.
Yeah, I know what you're talking. I know the sound you're talking about from that song.
And when I hit
sounds like it's like distorting your chords or something.
Yeah. And it's like a sound that I liked.
Yeah.
But, and here's the thing. Every time I sang that song live, by the last chorus,
done,
which has visible in a maze, future full of fear.
Oh, you went high.
I remember like I would never last. Like I was always done. My voice was like, oh my gosh, this is not going to hold up. And I never really knew why. And he goes, you're singing right on your chords. He's like, you have a few years left of vocal life. You can sing it like that. Yeah, you went dark on me, man.
How much do you like this song? Is it worth being your last song you sing?
Dude. And it was a bummer too, because that immediately, put me, talk about the like, your values wrapped up in what you do.
Right.
It's like, shoot, man, how do I get rid of that? So then we start going through vocal exercises, and it was an interesting experience because what we were doing didn't make sense to me, and I felt like he kind of went into just, here's what I do with everybody mode, and I felt like it wasn't customized to me, so I felt a little bit like in the situation, I was just like, I was kind of caught up in like, oh shoot, what's going on, and this doesn't feel right. Which of course, I think it was a little bit of this tear between like, well, maybe you're asking me to do something that's going to turn me into something I'm not.
Right, yeah.
Mixed with, can I even do it? And whatever. So, I don't know.
And the second going back to what we were talking about earlier, like the second you get up in your head when you're singing, it's done. Like you start thinking about it, and then your thought produces an emotion, whether it's fear or you're get a little shy about it, and then instantly your voice is the next thing that's affected.
Shoot. That's an interesting topic too.
That's the only. Well, I guess every instrument you could be held back if you're overthinking it or whatever. But especially your voice, because you can't even control it.
But dude, okay, so this is a good question for each other. I didn't even answer the original question.
What was the question?
It doesn't matter.
Confidence. Same thing. If you have 100% confidence when you're singing, you're going to be. It doesn't mean you're going to be a perfect singer, but it means you're going to be way better off. Then the second you start doubting, I only know that because I'm a big self-doubter in myself. So I had to, especially like touring a lot, I had to just learn how to just turn it off and just at least fake it. Like, I am great. I'm going to sound great. At least it gets rid of the thing that pulls you back, any sort of like negative emotion or any self-doubt or whatever. The second you start doubting your voice, it's going to choke up. How many times have you seen that with singers that come in and you're producing, and they may not be comfortable right away, and you gotta you're just trying to get them comfortable so that they can sing. Yeah. Because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be able to sing.
Yeah, it's one of the most delicate things.
I've even noticed my voice, my throat actually drying up when I get too nervous.
Oh yeah, I've gotten that a couple
many times. And you're like, wait a minute. And then you're just drinking water and nothing helps.
Right.
Because the water, you did it to yourself.
Water's a weird myth because it doesn't even, unless it's actually just like dripping down, when you swallow water, it doesn't even get close to your vocal cords.
Right. But I guess I've always heard that if it
did, it'd be going down your lungs.
You're supposed to drink while you're singing, I think. You need an IV.
That's called gargling.
It sounds a little worse. Chris Karn told me one time, he's like, the
mucus goes down. So if you're dehydrated and you hydrate, you make more mucus, and that,
I guess,
lubricates your cords. But you have a little flap in there that covers your vocal cords when you swallow water.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. I didn't know
Unless you gargle, because then the water is bouncing off your vocal cords.
So gargling's good.
I guess gargling's good.
But I think the main thing is you want to be hydrated. Chris Karn told me one time, he's like, singers that walk around drinking big jugs of water, which I've played with a lot of singers that like do that. Really? It's like a total sports mentality thing. It's always the guys that like played sports in high school, and the night of the show they have the biggest jug of water you can find at Costco, and they're just gulp gulp. And Chris told me one time, he's like, that doesn't help, because if you're not hydrated
before,
like 12 hours before or whatever, like your body takes time to be hydrated. You can't just instantly hydrate yourself.
That's true. And it could work against you, because if you're trying to use your diaphragm and you filled up your stomach with
and your
water,
stomach's full, yeah, and you're going to burp into the microphone. And I've done that too.
The worst, dude, is drinking a Red Bull before you go on stage. I've done that a bunch. Then you have a Red Bull burps into the mic. It's not pleasant.
How about chewing gum? Have you ever tried the chewing gum while you're singing thing?
Oh, the Dave Grohl?
Yeah, just while you're singing. I did it one time at the Gypsy Lounge back in the day. I was like, I'm going to try this, because it makes sense. You're chewing, so it produces more saliva, so you're less dried up. I guess that's the concept.
Yeah.
And right away, I went to take a big breath to hit a note, and I was like, "Oop!" Swallowed it. Like on the first song, I was like, "I'm not doing that again."
Yeah, that's danger. Just made me think of this. There's a former UFC fighter, and he would always have a toothpick in his mouth throughout the entire fight.
What? Why?
Like literally, the fight would be done. Benson Henderson is his name. You Google it. The fight would be done, and immediately there'd be a toothpick sticking out of his mouth, and there'd be like,
"How did that come?
What's going on there?" And he's like, "I train with it in."
So the whole fight, he
never had
a problem.
Mouth. Yeah, he hides it somewhere, and then all of a sudden there's a toothpick.
Weird, but that's probably for him. Just
fighting
gets him in the, I don't know, some sort of headspace.
Maybe,
or it calms him down or something.
Dude, I don't know what it is, but a sharp object in your mouth
while someone's punching
in the mouth,
or getting choked. Maybe he wants to use it as a weapon. So if you're getting choked out, you can just spit it at their eye. Just
oh yeah, a little secret
what I would
toothpick.
Do.
It's like a ninja move.
That's what I would do.
The double-starred edge Chinese star. Okay,
this is a vocal podcast. This is a singing podcast.
Yeah,
for
it really
singers.
became one.
I like it.
To take it back to where it started, though, I always felt like maybe for myself that because of my disabilities,
you have disabilities?
No, my inabilities. I just felt like the thing I had, like, it was like I need to. First of all, my songs. I need to have better song. I need to have great songs, and I need to be utterly emotional. And because it's not going to be because I'm a great singer, it's going to be because I'm as honest and emotional as I can possibly be. And
which is way better than
it helped me raise the bar. I don't know. And then I also really, I think this is a weird thing. This is an interesting topic too, is like, for some reason, what I felt like I had to say through singing involved me having a high range. And maybe it's like I loved a lot of singers that had really high ranges, like, you know, Sting and Jeff Buckley and Chris Cornell and I mean, you can hear me talking now. Like, I think my voice, I'm probably like a really, really low tenor or even a baritone, maybe, if you were to like rank my voice on the operatic spectrum.
Yeah, your voice sounds great up high. What
I had to push, dude. I didn't have any of that when I started.
Really?
I had to just like, I don't know what I did.
Just push it up, but you keep getting higher and higher.
Ball peen hammer on the crotch area. I had to just. It's like I'm singing those notes, and then I read something once that said, "You're only physically limited
lower range
in the lower range."
Yeah, I read that too.
Yeah, so
I read that same book.
Yeah, you did.
I don't know where.
It talked about vocal adduction, which is basically
that's what the vocal teacher I went to was all about.
It might have been that's
when
who I
you
read.
Squeeze your
Thomas.
Yeah, Appel.
It might have been him that I read.
That guy, I took the lessons from him.
He's hilarious.
He's so weird.
Hi, Thomas.
Great though, like he had a whole program.
Yeah, because you're basically what his thing was is that people who sing high, either they have small vocal cords and that's high, if they're like their speaking voice is high, whatever. But what you do, like your vocal cords are like shaped like this or whatever, approximation. But it's almost like fretting your vocal cords. So you like you close the end of them and make the vibrating length shorter, like on a string on a guitar.
Yeah.
And if you learn how to do that with your vocal cords, it becomes effortless to sing high. Whereas a lot of people, when they push to sing high, they stretch their vocal cords, which is the same as like tightening the string.
Yeah, so you're straining.
You're straining, yeah. So once I heard about that, I was like, okay, well then, what does that feel like? And when am I doing that and not doing it? And then I just like pushed and pushed and pushed until I had the upper register that I wanted. Mm-hmm. But it meant that I went through lots of straining and bullcrap.
What do you think about specifically guys speaking?
What do I think about dudes?
What do you think about dudes specifically? What do you think about guys where they put their speaking voice? Because like it's not, you know what I mean? You don't just like push a button and your voice comes out. You have to put a pitch to your voice when you're speaking.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about where you put your voice when you're talking?
Well,
because they say if you the more monotone you speak, like in terms of like notes,
vocal dysphonia,
it's bad. Like I've even noticed it before playing a show. I try to kind of be more animated with my voice because then it's almost better for your singing voice. Does that make any sense?
It does. And I've heard, well, I don't even remember what I heard, so this is red alert, but Italians, there we go, speak with the hands. Well, they're is it the Romantic languages? But for sure, Italians in Italy, I have very melodic voices. It's like part of the culture to sing or to talk in a very melodic way and use a wide range. Mm-hmm. And the same place that I heard this, it was like Americans are more known for
picking a low note.
Yeah. And even it's a weird cultural thing. There's a I forget what the problem's called, but executives often get it, and I think sometimes women in corporate situations have been known to get it, but they speak at the lowest possible point of their vocal cord, and they get nodules. Like,
right. It makes you sound more.
I really
important.
think that's a good idea. To make that deal, and we can.
Yeah, and you hear that person, you're like, that's not where your voice is supposed to go.
Right.
Like, that's not natural.
And they go home and they're like, but mom. Now, I've thought about that, hearing myself back. You know what? Sometimes I'll notice when I'm trying to be polite or something, I'll be like, I think I'm speaking like really like high and trying to sound. It'll always be in hindsight though. Like, have I been talking like really high for some reason? I don't know. What about you, sir?
That's something I've thought about. I've had to change, and it's weird. Should be the other way around, but I feel like I learned how. Well, I guess it makes sense. I feel like I learned how to speak properly through learning how to sing.
Oh yeah,
because it's the same thing with like the mask that you're supposed to put your voice here. Once I started doing that with my speaking voice, I was fine because I would always lose jack my singing voice up if I talk too much.
Oh, interesting.
And it was because I was trying to be like, I have a low voice. Whoa. And at one point I was like, it's probably not good.
Dude, that is weird. Well, you know what I've heard a lot is that when people hear my voice for the first time and I'm like there for it or something, this happening. I don't know.
You mean recorded?
Or when people meet me and know me for a while and then hear my music, often people will be like, that's you?
Because it's higher than your speaking voice?
I don't know. Or it doesn't sound like me talking when I'm singing.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that means. But I think part of it is that I have a bunch of different ways I sing, which gets back, dude, I wanted to talk more about this subject of how much thinking goes on when you're doing music, whatever you're doing, singing, playing, whatever. Let's get back to that. But I think part of it, see, that was a really high
burp,
like kind of like, feminine burp, if I might.
Feminine burp.
It was very.
I'll take it.
It was like a polite burp.
I was once mistaken
the burp of a small petite bird.
I like to burp like a bird. One time I was told somebody heard me singing on a recording, and who's doing the back? What? Who's that chick doing the background? I was like, that's me. And they were like, oh, I'm sorry. I was like, that's a compliment.
That's an ill-informed ear, though, right?
No, it was a music executive. It was someone that worked for Tooth and Nail.
Wow, you do have a very mellifluous.
It was like a high falsetto thing. And like, who's the girl that's singing that pretty background vocal? And I said, that's me. And instantly I took it as a compliment, which I think most people would be like, hey man. Most dudes would be like, that's not a girl. I think it's a compliment, only because girls are usually better singers.
Yeah, falsetto. Comes with the territory,
I guess. Anyways.
What the heck?
Thinking.
Yeah, thinking. But I was gonna say something else, whatever. But yeah, thinking like I've always had. I feel like I can't do anything without. If I don't have like a way that I think about it, I feel like everything will suck all the time.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Like,
you mean have a structure?
I don't feel like there's anything I do other than maybe perception-oriented things that come natural. Like I hear something and go, "Oh, that's this." Like that's like perceiving time or perceiving timbres or perception-oriented things come natural. But I think anything that I do, like playing drums, it doesn't, like I never was like, oh yeah, I just do it. I don't know how I do it. Like I just sit down and play. Man.
Oh, right.
Like even after like something second nature, if I don't have like a mindset that allows my heart set to come through the mindset.
Whoa, heart set. Did you just make that up or is that?
I think I've said it before.
I've never heard heart set before. I like it.
It's a thing. But I think if I don't have that, here's how I'm approaching it thing,
Right.
it all just will completely suck. It'll be bad. Like if I just sit down and play drums, I think the time would be everywhere. I have to have like a picture of how I'm thinking about time in which I play in.
That's pretty cool.
For which to play in. From which to play from. And then singing's the same way. Like I have to,
Heart frame.
for it to work.
I'm just going to keep saying that.
Heart set.
Heart set.
If I have to go like, okay, I'm gonna breathe like this. I'm gonna do this thing, and it will set up everything else.
You're talking about playing drums?
Anything, drums,
even when
but
you sit down, to a drum
especially
kit.
drums and singing. And I used to get obsessive with it. And with drumming, it was weird because it was like I came to learn that it's called synesthesia, where two senses get mixed together. So like,
whoa,
a common one is like maybe you see something, or no, here's a better one. You smell something and you see a color. Or
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, so and a lot of people, they hear something and they see a color.
Yeah.
So like, oh, that sounds pink. And people are like, why pink? And like, I don't know, I just see pink.
Yeah.
So it's very pretentious sounding, but it's also a real phenomenon. And for some reason, for me, sounds, or like rhythms, I see as shapes. So when I was a teenager and I was sitting there frustrated trying to get my time really good, I realized that every drummer I heard had a shape. So I'd be like, oh, if I just keep that shape in my head, or I started drawing the shapes on my snare.
Whoa,
if I keep that shape in my head and play that shape, then my time will be perfect.
So what shape is Stewart Copeland, for example?
He's like
squiggly line goes all over the place.
The shape tends to be, it's the way they feel the quarter note or the whatever gets the beat. You know, if it's a dotted quarter and 6/8. But so let's just say keep it simple, like it's the quarter note is here, the next quarter note is here, and how they subdivide the quarter note. So usually between backbeat and non-backbeat, so 1 and 3,
that makes the
4,
shape.
That makes the shape. So
interesting.
So there'd be like kick, snare, and then anything in between that would create the shape that's in between it. So like,
kind of makes sense.
There's people who there's drummers like Jeff Porcaro and John Bonham and Peter Erskine, and there's a handful of drummers that have a pretty square shape. So like, and then some drummers who have a shape that's kind of like a rhombus. And then there are drummers who have like a long, kind of oblong, rounded shape. And Stewart is in the triangle category. He has very like angular. So I started to think about like, why is that phenomenon happening? So with Stewart Copeland, his shape is angular and sharp, and part of it has to do with sonically what's happening. He has sharp tones.
Yeah.
But also a leaning shape, I would see as drummers who tended to push one of their hands. Like he leads with his right hand. So whenever he's playing a groove, it's like you can tell it's like what's holding the groove together is his right hand, and it's pushing. So he's got kind of rush it. He tends to rush and he pushes his right hand, but the snare drum, by virtue of physical things, but also maybe where he feels it, his snare drum tends to be a little behind the other things. And his kick drum tends to be the thing that's the most rooted and kind of like there.
So that makes him tilt?
So it makes him tilt, but it's like a consistent tilting. There's like this tension in the beat. And then when that tension gets out of control, it'll rush. And then the drummers who feel like the most vertical and square are the ones who don't have tension inside their beat.
It's just straighter and...
Yeah, what I've noticed is it seems like they're feeling the pulse internally and then just playing to the pulse. And a lot of drummers that have that tilted feeling are like, this beat depends on me playing it. So it's like...
like it's not there.
It's like, here's the beat, and then my kick and snare are going to like lock into that thing.
Whoa, that's killer.
And what happens is those drummers, when they go to play a fill, a lot of times the groove will fall apart a little, but in a good way, because they've given up on that crutch. So it's like, and it kind of goes away. But then these drummers like Porcaro and Bonham, Steve Ferroni, Peter Erskine, they have, it sounds like floating on a cloud, yet it can be really intense. One of the analogies that I thought of was like, let's say you're driving in a car and there's a hole in the floor and you're driving in a very dangerous way, like over the dotted lines, whatever the dashes are. What are those things called? The lane dividers?
Dashes.
So let's say you're going like 20 miles an hour and you're just seeing like dash. Well, you're looking out the window. Okay. Dash.
I like the hole in the floor thing.
Dash. It kind of ruins the analogy. Okay. So you're looking out the window and the dashes are going by and you're going at consistent speed. So that's basically a visual click track.
Okay.
Dash, dash, dash. The drummers that are like, have a angular groove where there's tension in it. Oh, the point of this is you have a ball in your hand and the idea is to place the ball on the dash.
Right. So you're right on the beat.
So the drummers that have that tension in the groove and tend to be what I would see as tilted in this shape thing, it's like you would see the dash coming and throw the ball at it. Throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. Oh, I hit it. I missed it. The drummers who have this upright shape, they literally go, I know when the dash is going to be here. And they just drop the ball, drop the ball. Relaxed. Boom. There's the beat. You see how you can aim at that dash with a bunch of intensity and anticipation, or you can be like, I know when it's coming, and drop it. And so those drummers tend to look relaxed. They tend to just like have a certain kind of, they even place themselves in gravity different. That's another thing I noticed more recently.
You mean the posture-wise?
Yeah, you can see in their posture that they're not leaning and they're very centered. They have a good center of gravity. And so when they play, there's no tension in their body either. So their body becomes more of an expression of their mental state. And when you look at these drummers that have this intense feeling, usually they're like leaning towards the hi-hat or leaning towards the ride. And they create this thing in their body that if they were to go play a different drum, their center of gravity has to shift. And therefore the time shifts because...
because every little millisecond counts. With rhythm.
Like think of it in the extreme. Like imagine if I put you as off balance as I possibly could on the drum throne and then said, now play a shuffle on the ride. And you're almost falling off the stool towards the ride. And then I said, okay, now while playing, go off balance totally toward the hi-hat and switch to the hi-hat. The chances of their time being consistent would be like nil.
It's impossible.
But if you're totally centered and you could choose ride or hi-hat with no change in your body gravity and your balance, the chances your time would stay solid is like way higher.
Is this getting back to why you think everyone should play drums or learn how to play drums? Because well, seriously, like the same way that I get annoyed with musicians that don't want to learn how to sing, even though they could, is the same. Like everybody should learn rhythm. Every musician should learn. You don't have to sit down on a drum kit, but like you should learn this kind of minutia of rhythm because it translates to everything, to your guitar playing, if you're a guitar player, to whatever other instrument. But only drummers talk and think like this.
Yeah. Well, I think there are two reasons why I would say that. Is one is because I kind of feel like the drums are the foundation, and the vocal is the cherry on top. So if you understand what's at the bottom and what's at the top, then that sort of is like a cool. It's like you understand the frosting and you understand how to bake the cake or something.
Yeah.
And then also like, I think drums and I think vocals and drums both are like this. Is that those are two instruments that I think you can manifest emotions physically to 100%, and that's a valid way of playing the instrument. So you can hit the drums as hard as you can, and it's valid. You can sing as hard as you can. You can scream, and that's a valid expression.
Thing, yeah. But if you hit a guitar as hard as you can,
you break it.
Yeah. or you squash the sound of that instrument.
Yeah, or in most cases, I mean, if you hit as hard as you could, unless you have crazy strings on that thing, you're going to ruin... I mean, even a bass with big, heavy strings, if you hit it too hard, it's not going to be... It's just going to...
Yeah, it doesn't sound good.
So you have to restrain your emotion on most instruments and actually like
that's true.
Figure out like, oh, how am I going to get this emotion that's 1,000 miles wide, but restrain it enough so it's within the confines physically of that instrument. Like you're more powerful than the instrument. Right. I think vocally and drum wise, now it's not necessarily sustainable to hit as hard as you can or sing as hard as you can, but it is a valid expression. Yeah. So there's something about, I mean, there's nothing better than if you're feeling some intense emotion and you can sit behind the drums.
Oh yeah.
You can literally beat the crap out of them and get that emotion out physically. And if you're feeling, that's why in some of my music I scream, like the ability to have that full blown thing.
Yeah.
And maybe when it like in guitar, it's like, oh, I can crank the amp to 10.
Right. That's why
and max out my ears.
That's why guitar players tend to get so nerdy about gear, I think.
It's true.
Because a tube or a pedal or something that you could put in between you or something that helps make that sound.
Yeah.
That's what does that. It's not your hand hitting the guitar really hard. But, I mean, it's different.
That's awesome.
But it also gives you the same feeling. Especially, dude, there's nothing like, you know this, playing with a rock band and standing in front of your amp, a big amp, and cranking it up. I mean, there's so much stuff happening. There's electricity. There's like air being pushed. You actually feel it. And it's not you hitting your guitar harder. It's like, it's voltage. It's like this other thing that's like invisible. And that's what's giving this kind of emotion.
Dude, I'm totally tripping out right now.
Bro!
I've just never...
Get down to it!
It's a cool connection of the thoughts because like... And it's interesting that it requires electricity.
Oh, that is cool.
Whereas the voice and drums, all you need is this object.
Right, but I thought you were going to say like
the
electricity in your body. Everybody has electricity in your body. It's what makes
that's
your heart.
A whole other level.
I thought we were going there, bro.
Let's go there.
Take it down.
But I think
all the way.
There's something visceral about the voice. There's something visceral about drums. And they're probably the two oldest instruments.
Right. Yeah.
Because obviously there was very little technology required to make both. But there's a sophistication, obviously, to amplified instruments and like...
Yeah.
But that's killer that it is like you get this visceral thing through the amp, like through the...
Mm-hmm. That's why people are so obsessed with guitar amps and
constrained.
Gear and this and that and the tubes and that and the transformers and because that's where the power that's where that comes from. That's where that energy comes from.
Yes. And in recording, that's where I get in love with room mics and in love with compression because I want drums to sound like they sound when I'm playing them.
Yeah, yeah.
And in order to get that kind of like unbelievable impact that you feel when you're playing, you can't just get that by putting a mic on a drum.
Right.
It just doesn't translate for some reason, or at least not to me. But electricity.
Yeah.
Where were you going with that? Tesla? Over there?
Nah. Well, I just
Edison?
People don't realize it, but like for example, I do electrical work, and I can, when you get shocked, your body is being grounded. So the electricity is going through you because electricity is always looking for ground. That's why lightning like shoots to the ground. It's looking for it, like that's its partner or whatever. Mm-hmm. So when you get, let's say you get electrocuted and you die, if it's such a strong shock that it kills you, it's because it stops your heart. because it interferes with your own electricity. Everybody has like electrical impulses and stuff.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't know how that works because we plugged into something. We don't know what we're plugged into, but we're plugged into something that gives us that electricity that makes your heart beat. And the way I understand it is if you get a big enough shock that goes through your body, it's so dynamically different than your body's electricity that it interrupts it and you can just shut it off. So it's just more electricity. And then if you look at a guitar amp, you know, and the voltage thing, especially when it comes to rock, you know, guitar like a Van Halen, like it's all voltage based. And then that's where all this like, well, I don't know why we hear that and think that's powerful, but we do. Maybe it's because of the electricity, you know.
Interesting. I would put forth that maybe it has more to do with sound waves. I wonder.
Of course, yeah. But how do those
like?
But it's like a frequency, and which is kind of another form of a.
So, yeah, I wonder how electricity plays a role in that. So I think the idea of standing in front of a loud guitar amp is that it's like you said, it's like moving air.
Air, yeah.
It's hitting you, and it's like it's equal to your emotions or something. I guess it's this weird connection between an inner experience, which who knows what electrical factors are involved in, like when you feel a certain way or think a certain thing.
Yeah, your brain's
obviously your brain's firing with electricity, but that's like it's almost like we're trying to manifest in the physical, we're trying to manifest in sound waves a representation of what's going on electrically in our brains. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
I know. I'm kind of getting out of my depth here. I'm just guessing.
I'm way out of my depth.
But that's the same thing.
Deepak Chopra would just say it's the quantum.
Yeah.
It's something quantum. But it is cool. I think maybe that's a bro science version of physics relative to art. Mm-hmm. Like we're trying to create something symbolic that's a representation of thought and emotion. We want to manifest thought and emotion in the physical world in a way that's actually outside our body,
outside of your own.
We want it to be outside our body, but we want that thing that's outside our body to hit our body
the way that it hits you internally, or the way you feel it, or whatever. Internally.
Yeah, there's something going on there where it's like you hit a drum emotionally, and then the drum hits you.
Ooh.
You hit a guitar, and then the amp hits you.
It does. Yeah.
It is like it's a conversation between your emotions and the physical world, and you want that thing to hit back at you, right. And then you want that to hit people, and you want the people to hit you back. Mm-hmm. It's everybody's hitting everything.
Well, I wonder how much some sort of electrical pulse has to do with the way you feel an emotion. Because if it starts in your head and there's these electrical impulses that are firing to neurons and there's all that stuff going on, then that can produce an emotion from that kind of electric thing.
Ooh.
It's all the same thing, but it's just another way of getting it.
Say that again.
I've never actually even thought about this before, but I'm just saying, how does your emotion play into that? Does it start from those electrical impulses, and then it creates, at some point, it turns into some like a feeling.
Ooh,
not a physical, but like an emotional feeling.
You know, that brings up a lot of thoughts about like where do these things come from? You know, like you hear Jordan Peterson a lot of times talk about how we're not transparent to ourselves. Like we don't know where what consciousness really is or where stuff comes from. We can kind of like watch it happening, but like we were talking about this a little bit before we started the podcast, which is like chicken or the egg. What comes first, thought or emotion? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people think it's like you think something and then you feel about it, and that there's a lot of strength to the idea or validity to the idea that like it's really that we have these feelings and we have all this subconscious stuff going on in our consciousness that we're not consciously aware of it, and then we have thoughts about it, and then we try to justify the feeling with a thought, and that our thoughts and opinions and our actions are are a result of us justifying these deeper beliefs and thoughts that we have. So like, you know, like, oh, that person said this about me. Like, I think I should punch them in the face, you know? And it's like, well, maybe, you know, you were triggered to some conscious, maybe what they said really, you could decide to blow it off, but there's some deep feeling in you. Like road rage is a good example. Like you get triggered into an emotion and then you justify the action, but really like you have this deep, like, again, like not enough hugs as a kid or something. Like you're like this pent up thing. You're looking for a way to be violent, let's say. And then all you need is that one reason to justify the violence. But you might go to your grave saying like, no. Like it was basically self-defense because this person said this thing and then I got triggered.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought you were going to say in the same way, like if somebody criticizes you for something, if you get completely just thrown off and emotionally just hurt by it, it's probably because there's something you kind of agree with in it.
Ooh,
you know what I mean? That's when it really hurts the most, is when you know like a little bit of truth in it. That makes you even more upset. Or that amplifies that emotion even more.
Yeah, that's a whole other subject of like, being found out, I guess, in a way, or called out on something. That's the worst, man.
Something that you know already.
Yeah, you know something's up.
Dude, nothing hurts more than that. It could be like the smallest thing, but if you are already thinking it kind of somewhere, or you've already thought it about yourself and someone else brings it up, it's like, it's naturally going to come out as like,
especially the more in denial you are about that thing, the worse it is. Or the more it's plaguing you, I guess, and somebody calls it out, it almost feels mean because you're like, oh, don't you know how much I'm struggling with that? Like, and you're going to call it out, you know?
It's sad. It's sad.
It is kind of sad, especially if it's something like, I don't know, something physical or you know.
Right.
Like if you had
something you're born with.
Yeah, lateral lisp. If you had a really bad lateral lisp and somebody says, like, makes fun of your lisp.
Yeah.
It can be any direction, lateral, vertical.
So this is another reason to be honest in what you're doing.
Stop it. I know I have a lisp.
Well, that's why like a fat comedian will go up on stage and the first thing he says is like a fat joke about himself. And then that just disarms the whole thing, and then nobody can think it anymore, and nobody can, like, I've already made fun of myself. With this thing that's obvious that you're going to make fun of.
I did that very thing on this podcast.
What'd you do?
It's like, what happened since the last podcast and this podcast? And I'm like, well, I've gained a few pounds. You know, so like, if you're the one that says it first, then you win a little bit.
Or it disarms it. Yep.
Yeah, it's true. It takes a little bit of the power away.
But that's just being vulnerable. That's like
vulnerable and
as completely open as you can, and just being, oh, I know this sucks about me. I'm just going to say it, so that you can't say it.
Yeah. How does that apply to you saying that you're not confident? Does it apply?
It doesn't, because I would never have said that before. I would have just acted confident. You know. Now I'm just getting older, and I just try to let go of all that stuff.
Yeah, it is true.
And we're here talking into microphones, and I think the best, conversations that I listen to are when people are completely vulnerable. You know what I mean?
So it's almost
I think
required.
That's what people want. I think people need to, nobody wants to hear someone just talk great things about themselves, no matter how great they are, you know?
That's
want to
true.
hear, and you want to hear really, not that we're brilliant, smart people, but the brilliant, smart people we like to listen to, I love it when they are vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
Like you mentioned Jordan Peterson, you hear him and he'll just get to the point where it's like, this is something I don't understand. I'm just kind of talking about it. I'm at the end of my understanding. You're like, whoa.
Getting to the edge of tears talking about people coming up to him after his speaking engagements. Like that's
embarrassing to do that.
Yeah, but it gives you a little portal into what's important to him.
Right. And that's how we connect with people.
You know what's interesting? I heard it said that like I watched this documentary on documentary makers, documentarians.
Mm-hmm.
And they said that there's a fascinating thing that like you can be like they'll go into a place and setting up the microphones and getting the cameras ready and about to interview somebody. And, there's that politeness and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You throw the camera on and all of a sudden people will tell you things they wouldn't tell the closest people to them.
Weird.
Things they wouldn't even tell their family.
Why is that?
I don't think they had an answer for it, but we can pontificate on what we think. But I think there's something about...
Maybe it's because they want to get it out.
You want to get it out, and it's almost like, oh, you put a camera on me, here's my chance to say it to everyone at the same time instead of one specific person who might judge me. I don't know. Or it's almost like a... I don't know. It's I guess a chance to vent. Therapy's like that. In a way, maybe that's a therapeutic environment, is when somebody you don't know is asking you what you think and feel or to tell a story.
That makes sense, because you're not, if you can talk about yourself outside of a situation, like if you can talk about a situation that you're in, you're not in it right there, it's almost like it's easier to step back from it.
You know, it's interesting about that, to bring it back to me.
Let's talk about me.
Well, I've thought like I miss performing as an artist, and the first thing I think is like, no, I'm not. Like there's been a couple occasions where, hey, you want to come sing? And I'll be like, no, I'm kind of on hiatus from that. But internally I go, yes, I absolutely would love to come sing for sure, but I'm not going to. And then the thing I think is like, oh, it would be great to go out. Like I wish I could just like drive to Wisconsin and do a bunch of gigs.
For people that you don't know.
As long as people don't know me and nobody's like filming it, if I could just go do it anonymously, not that I have to worry about anonymity, but
you can do that.
Any gig I do is basically anonymous, but I think just the idea of like, this is just happening for random people and it's a one-time thing and I'm just doing it.
Right.
That just says a lot about maybe like insecurities or something, but just the idea of doing it with nothing at stake is maybe like the dream.
For sure. Well, it's also the hardest crowd you'll ever perform in front of is a room of, like full of people that you know, especially musicians, but just people that you know. If there's like, if it's a small club and you're playing a gig or whatever, and there's like 15 or 20 people there that you know, that's the hardest. That is the hardest gig, because you know them and you know what they think and you know what I mean. Like,
this is what's crazy, man. Is I think this is one of the, like, I consider you to be like a kindred spirit in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And in this weird 20-year friendship we've had, we've hung out very little, yet stayed very close. And then recently have spent a lot of time together working on music and stuff and gotten more tight, I think.
Yeah.
But
you're welcome.
Here's a, So, but this is an area that is like, we're so different. Like, I would feel like maybe the opposite in that scenario. Like
you'd be more comfortable around your family and friends or something.
I guess it's, or like an intimate show would be the ultimate. Whereas a lot of people say like, ooh, intimate shows are horrible. Give me a stadium full of people and then I'll feel comfortable.
Oh yeah.
And I guess that comes down to maybe, I don't know, there's a part of me that really I want to be known and I want to know. Like I want to understand people and I want to know people on as deep a level as I can. And I want people to know me on that level. And I almost feel like, because I feel that way about songwriting and singing, that like, oh, this is where I can get this stuff that I can't get out any other way. I can get it out. It's a tool for me to feel like I exist and that I'm understood, I guess. So to be able to do that in front of people I knew, I feel like there's some belief I have that like, oh, now they'll get me more and then I'll feel closer to them.
That makes sense too.
And that if I can get that somehow from them, like the ultimate would be like everybody gets to go up on stage and sing and or do whatever it is they do that they can like come totally honest and vulnerable. I feel like we get caught up so much in like patterns of inauthentic speech and interactivity, I guess. It's really easy to do that. And I think that's why I value the small handful of friends I have where that's like welcome and important and like you're down to dive into it. And I wish you were like that. Just kidding.
Whoa.
No, I would consider you in that small group of people that I know that are down to just dig in or just willing to put it out there no matter what or whatever. And it's yeah,
I think so. I feel the same way. I mean, I was just saying that earlier before we turned the mics on. I value this a lot because I don't have a ton of people. I mean, I do have a lot of musician friends, but don't sit down very often and get into the weeds with this kind of stuff with a lot of people. I just think it's not important to people that aren't doing something creative or don't have that
introspective thing, or
yeah,
what?
on a normal basis. I think everybody does, but I don't know. Like, it's just important to us.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that
I think it's the most important.
Yeah. What is that?
I don't know. But that's why I like this kind of. That's why I like listening to people talk, because to me that's the most important thing. I don't know why. It's
that's the reason why I think I wanted to start the podcast up again, is that podcasts have become an important part of my life. It's a place to learn. It's a place to sort of, I don't know, you're interacting with people you would not otherwise know. So you almost feel like you're a fly on the wall. Like I feel like I'm there talking, but I'm just not talking.
Well, to me, it's the same thing. You just said if you were in a room full of people and you were playing your music, that would be the best way for you to feel like you're almost like there's a little more of a connection or something, or known. That I kind of feel that way too when I'm listening to smart people talk. I feel like there's a validation, like
finally somebody's smart enough.
Someone else is just like me, brilliant. No, but you kind of feel there's a validation, like, oh, this person thinks those kind of weird thoughts too, or this person is processes things in a
hashtag me too.
Yeah, just like that.
No, it's totally that, and that's like it's interesting. It's vicarious too. Like I've thought about that a lot, especially in starting to podcast again. I think the worst thing, like I've gone back, like when I'm like editing the podcast from before, like getting them ready to put out, and then little moments in there will be like, I'll hear it like cringeworthy moments of the conversation, like moments when you can tell there's like a sense of like, oh, what are we going to talk about now? Or like, let's get comfortable or whatever. Like, that's not what you want. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, you want to hear people, you want to hear someone that's comfortable enough to open up into their own brain a little bit.
Yeah, and it's funny how that's hard to do. It's hard to do when you're in a grind of life with somebody. Maybe it's like hard to kind of break it down and like.
That's true, man. That's why you got to go to couples therapy.
And maybe it's an introvert thing too. Like if you tend to be less extroverted and you're more somebody who's kind of in your thoughts, you don't want to really. First of all, it takes a lot of energy that you're not naturally gifted with to talk.
That's a really good point, because
it steals energy, and then you also feel like you're burdening people with all your thoughts.
Totally, that's so crazy.
So this is like a weird narcissistic way to like go like, podcast. You're supposed to talk about stuff.
That's so funny because my wife is very she's very articulate and outspoken, and she's just a completely open person, and she'll just talk, and probably shouldn't say it like that. Blah 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 blah.
Edit.
No, but I always wish I was like that. I wish at the end of the day, she'd tell me how her day is, whatever, and I do not want to talk about my day at all. I just don't. Unless it's something like really fun.
Is it because you don't like your day usually?
No, I always ask myself that question.
It already
Why
happened?
can't I just open up and tell her like the mundane stuff that she'll tell me about her day, and I'll listen, but I just don't, like you said, I don't have the energy for it or something, or I don't want to like bring it up again because all day I'm in my head. I don't want to. It just takes a lot to get that out.
Is it because what happened is less important than what's going on inside you?
I don't know, maybe.
So I do find that extroverted people are a little bit more focused on the external. They're focused on what happened and what's going on, and introverted people are kind of swimming around maybe in their reactions to things. And once a thing happens, it's like it's done. So talking about maybe what's going on with you or how you reacted to those things is maybe more interesting than filling somebody in on facts.
On the details, yeah. Because that's what you're doing when someone says, how's your day? You're not telling them how you feel. You're telling them what happened.
Right. Unless maybe that's when you do talk, is when there's like, oh, dude, this person did this.
Maybe. I'm going to start paying attention to that. Because I want to know why I have this like wall where when it's my turn to share my mundane stuff about the day, I don't want to do it. It's weird.
Ooh, here's an example. So, okay, so you do music and you make money doing it. You do music and you do it purely for the love of it, and then you do this electrical work. I remember you talking, I don't remember exactly what you said, so I'll just let you go off on it. But here's my question is like, after we, let's say, have worked together a whole day on something, take, for example, even something that maybe was not as like artistically right up your alley. So like when we were working on that, the Untitled song for the book club, that movie, when we first had a recording of that, I remember you saying that you enjoyed coming home and like playing the stuff for your wife. What part of that was like, did you want to share?
Like, why did I?
Yeah, why? 'Cause I remember you saying that you did, right?
I don't know. I've had this talk with her too. There's something about collaborating with you and being, you know, in this kind of creative zone here that is like we could work all day long and I would go home full of energy, can't sleep. But if I worked half a day doing anything else, I just feel like drained. You know? Like I can just pour myself into being musical and creative, and it's almost like it just like there's a deeper well there or something that actually makes me feel more energized.
Yeah, when it's,
I don't know.
When it's good, or even when it's bad, it's good, I guess, when you compare it to most other things in life in terms of the work
why
we're
is
doing.
that? Maybe that's the process. If you really enjoy the process of it, it just builds you up.
Yeah, and the process is so multifaceted too. Like,
Right. It never gets boring.
it's like it's not talking all day, and it's not creating all day, and it's not
Right. Or it's more specific. It's not writing lyrics all day if we're writing a song.
Right.
With somebody.
It's
It's
a
not
bunch
just
of
doing
different
music,
stuff.
you know, all day. It's not just mixing all day. It's not just, you know, getting sounds all day. It's not just talking to someone about ideas all day. It's like all those things.
yeah.
And then she's constantly like looking around, like trying to pick things out of the air.
Yeah, and it's the creativity aspect too is just so. If you walked in and there's nothing, and you walk out and there's something that wasn't there before, and it's so multifaceted. That's the fascinating thing about songs is how multifaceted they are. They're like
Different levels of.
there's some driving force that you're coming from and writing it, and then if you're doing it collaboratively, you have to both sort of agree that that's the goal, sort of, but you're both bringing your different perspective to it, and then you're trying to figure out what things, and this gets back to our original that earlier conversation, like you have to figure out like what physical things can we do that represent this weird mushy idea of the song we're going after. Oh, is it a guitar? Which guitar? Oh, is it? Are we picking? Are we strumming? Is it distorted? Is it acoustic? Whatever. You're making all these decisions, and then all of a sudden you've created something that has some basis in things you've heard before, but it's in a new context, and you're trying to make it fit a pre-existing kind of space. You know, like, oh, we know we're aiming for like a pop song or whatever it might be. But you want to give it your own spin. So then, and yeah, it's like there's so many facets to it, and then you're kind of negotiating or agreeing or disagreeing.
Compromising. Yeah.
But I think the fact that you've made something,
Maybe
is
that's
like
what it is.
so fulfilling.
Yeah, the fact that after you make it, there's something that just gives you like oh wow, something. I don't know what that is. Maybe that goes all the way back to creation itself, like making something.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. It's part of that like initial energy that created the universe or whatever it is. I'm getting a little over my head right now, but you know what I mean? Like you're tapping into that sort of fundamentally important thing.
Yeah.
Which is making something, you know, that's why people have to, biologically, we want to have children for the same reason. Like you have to like make something out of you.
And what's weird is it's almost like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost said this, but
Do it.
I was going to say it's almost like nuclear energy. Whoa. But there's a famous quote, and I'm horrible with remembering quotes, but I'll paraphrase, and I won't tell you who said it. So
you can't check it?
I could have just acted like I said it.
Oh.
But basically, like that a great work of art is an endless source of energy.
Ooh, never heard that.
And the fact that you can create something that if you do it well, or even if you do it pretty well, that it's this source of energy, emotional energy. Like that's why songs are so great, because they're this short little pocket of energy that all you have to do is press play.
Every time
and then
you
can
hear
press
it,
repeat, and then you can just keep pressing play, and it can be a source of energy. It can like give you something.
Totally.
And you've created it. It is weird. That's what art is. Like a great painting or a great film, you can just keep going back to it. And if it's really good, there are like tons of different layers of, what would you call it? Like levels of analysis. You know, like you can get it on one level and you can get it on a different level. You can get it from the level of like, that's why songs are so great. You can get it from the level of the lyric. You can get it from the level of the music.
Just the sound of it.
If you from just the sound of it, or if you're really into drums, you can get it from that level one day, and then you can listen to the vocal the next day. Or which brings me to a whole other topic, which is a can of worms. It's this finger,
Worm finger.
worm finger. Ooh, that sounds like a good Bond film.
Worm finger.
James Bond 8, worm finger. Lost my train.
Oh, I spilled my coffee.
Lost my worm of thought.
Wormhole. You didn't say anything, so I can't help you. You just told me about this wormhole in your finger.
Dude, that is crazy.
Should we look for questions?
I need more coffee.
Where'd my phone go?
Now it's time for listener questions.
Did I lose my phone?
That thought flew out of my head like no thought has ever flown out of my head. That is crazy.
Distracted you.
Why does that happen?
Because you have too many ideas in your brain, and if you
There we go.
let loose of one of them, it just floats away. I could have sworn I had a phone around here somewhere.
All right. We sent out a red alert about questions, and we may not have done it early enough to get questions.
I got nothing.
I got one. All right.
What do you got?
This is from Lisa Spice. What's up, Lisa?
Spicy.
Yeah, you can always count on Lisa. That's what I find.
Yeah?
Yep.
Anybody named Lisa or just this one Lisa?
It's got to be the spicy Lisa.
Okay.
Actual last name. So that's at Lisa X Spice. Who are you listening to these days? Tell you who I'm not listening to. Who inspires you? What are your non-musical inspirations? Can you share your workflow? What equipment do you prefer?
That's too many questions, Lisa Spice.
Where do you the music industry in 5 years see? I'm assuming the word "see" is missing.
See yourself?
Where do you see the music?
Where do you see
industry
the music industry?
in 5 years, in 10 years?
Pick one.
Well, she must have intuited that we were low on questions,
So she gave you 25
so she
questions.
gave me 25. All right, let's start with the first one. Who are you listening to these days, Cory Clark?
Which day? You're saying that's a lot of days. These days?
These ones.
Today?
Yeah, if you're listening to that much stuff, let's go with today.
I was listening to Zeppelin last night when I was cooking in the kitchen. I find that if I need...
That's not specific enough.
It's not. Zeppelin 2. And
Which
3.
has what on it?
Whole Lot of Love, I think, is the first song. 3, I think, has Friends on it. I love that song. Here's what I will
Friends,
say.
is that So no one told you that you're gonna...
That one.
Okay.
Yeah. Not a lot of people know that's Led
That's
Zeppelin.
Zeppelin.
I would say this as more of a broad answer, because I was thinking about this on the way here. There's times when you just want music, and you don't know what you don't know specifically.
That's what Pandora's for, man.
I guess. Is that what people do? They just
I
put on
think.
a random playlist or something?
The only time that happens is when it's massage time.
You go for the sexiest playlist you can find. You know what I mean? When you like, for me, I'm in the kitchen. I like to cook, so I got my little Alexa right there, and I'm like, I need music right now. This is gonna make this so much more dense of an experience of cooking this pasta, whatever. And I don't know what to. I don't know what I want to hear.
Yeah.
I just go right to the classics. So for me, that's Zeppelin, Beatles, Radiohead. Those are my 3.
The warm, fuzzy classics.
And anytime, like, it just works every time. Then I'm in it.
That's cool.
Because it happens all the time. Like, I just need to hear something.
you can
feel
trust
something, I
it?
just don't know.
And you can get
Well,
into your
because
zone.
maybe it's mental. Like, if I feel like if I'm gonna be listening to music, you want to listen to something that's a little more classic.
Why?
You know what I
though?
mean? Because that's the good stuff.
Oh,
Because I get caught up. I'm a sucker for a good pop song. So sometimes I can just like listen to pop music for too long, and then I'm like, ugh, it's just candy.
but does it have to do with the fact that you know it too? It's like
No, because all three of those artists that I just mentioned have such vast catalogs. I mean, I guess I probably know all the songs, but at the same time, it's like it's almost like kind of trying to feed my inner whatever
and those
musician.
They speak to you, right? Those are your like favorite things.
Yeah, if it was classic and I didn't like it, then I wouldn't listen to it. But just but starting with the point of like this is one of the greatest artists to ever live. Like that is you want to. I feel like you want to fill yourself up with that kind of stuff.
Now here's a question, dude. Those are all artists that basically came and went. Nope.
Never.
My theory is totally gone
None
lost
of them
with
came
Radiohead.
Oh, they're still around.
Radiohead. I was gonna say that those are. Well, do you listen to recent Radiohead?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there goes my theory. I was gonna say that there's something about the classics that they're like. When it comes to Beatles and Zeppelin, at least, it's like that stuff that's like it happened mostly before you were born, right?
Yeah,
and it's like those are like bedrock bands.
that's what I mean.
And
yeah.
Radiohead is too.
Totally.
I mean, I guess in a way, like they definitely, like those other bands, will stand outside of time. I mean, you could maybe argue that the first record or two of Radiohead were of a time,
right?
The 90s.
Those are the ones
I
I don't really dig as much.
There you go. Okay, so maybe there's something about the timelessness of the band that sort of transcends and puts you in the grilled cheese making mode. Pasta?
I don't make grilled cheese, dude. Okay,
Maybe you should.
I'll make some grilled cheese.
When you get grilled cheese, man, and you added like ham and tomato,
That's not grilled cheese anymore.
it's
That's a panini.
it's artisan grilled cheese.
If you just add the word artisan or craft to anything,
Yes.
it makes it way more interesting.
Artisan sandwich, dude. All right, so you
didn't answer the question. What are you listening to?
man, listening to a lot of my son say crazy things. That's one of my favorite things to listen to right now. You know what's funny, man, is I have a problem
Tell me
with
about it.
listening to new. Why am I focusing on that? I'm going to focus on what I'm listening to.
Yeah.
I've been listening to a lot of the Peter Gabriel So album.
Yeah, that's been going on for a long time with you.
It has.
The last couple of months.
I get on real cycles, like where
Yeah.
it's been the only like new things I listen to are podcasts and music that I'm a part of creating.
Yeah.
Which I listen to that because it's exciting to hear something that's new that I've worked on, and then also I'm constantly
And you're working.
trying to figure out how to make it better or reliving the moment or whatever. So I've been listening to, like for example, two students of mine at Biola University. We finished their songs yesterday, and I threw them on a CD, and so I've been listening to those. And then there's another one I'll finish that I'll listen to that one. So, shout out to Ray and Ellery, and then after that, Chris. So I've been listening to those a lot, just kind of like, oh, cool, this happened. And then, but Peter Gabriel, So, and then the mainstay is Chris Cornell, Euphoria, Morning. Those are like the two records that are in my
That's
in my
never
car.
left. That's probably never left your car since it came out.
Dude, here's how true that is that the CD, CD,
Yep.
got super scratched. So I went on Amazon and
you
like
bought
bought
a second one.
the CD and put it in there, and I said, I'm never taking it out so it doesn't get scratched. And then realized, here's how much of an idiot I am. I looked in my trunk, and there was another brand new, unopened Euphoria Morning. I'd bought it twice on Amazon thinking the same thing. Like, I need like a protected new version of this.
Man. So you've bought that record 3 times.
At least.
Wow.
And I even thought, like, maybe I'll give this one to Cory. And then I said, no, I'm going to need a backup. Like, I had that like real selfish thought.
Got anxious.
And it was the new version with Euphoria
They spelled it different. Yeah.
Or no, Morning spelled different, sorry.
They spell it like the original intent, right?
Yeah. Here's a fun fact. if you care. Euphoria Morning. It was spelt like morning, like nighttime and morning time. Like, and I think, was it his manager who said people aren't going to know how to find it and spell it if you spell it morning as in like mourning the death of somebody.
Yeah. And
he gave in on that and called it Euphoria Morning. And then before he passed away, obviously, when they reprinted it, he decided like, no, I'm going to go back to my original idea, which was Morning, M-O-U.
It's funny that you would care that much.
Yeah.
Like on a past record, like why? It's cool, but I would not care. I feel like.
Really?
I don't know. I don't think I would.
I think when you're Chris Cornell and you put your 90s band back together and you're reminiscing and you're 50 something.
Yeah.
Maybe those are the things you start to care about
Maybe
more.
That's what comes up. Spelling. Spelling starts to really become important.
So that's what I've been listening to, and
nonstop.
I consider like Euphoria Morning and Jeff Buckley Grace, which I'd be listening to that too if I could find the CD. Because I refuse to listen to MP3s of those things that I love because they
don't sound as good.
Yeah, the interface between phone and car sonically is just not there yet.
No, it's not great.
Whereas CD players in cars, at least my car, sonically is just there's pretty night and day. Like
especially when you go Bluetooth, because I had like the hardwired forever, from the phone to the car. And then I switched over just for convenience. I was like, I don't know if I can do it. It doesn't sound as good.
Dude, it's weird. It's made me really realize like how much I value sonics as like an emotional element of songs. And it's like, duh. Like I have all this gear and I'm obsessed with mixing but like just even as a plain old way that I enjoy music, a pretty hefty percentage is like how it impacts me and the qualities of things. And
what about vinyl though? You're not into vinyl? I only ask because it's just a different sonic quality. Same record, it just sounds a little different.
I think if they figured out how to have a record player in a car, I might be into vinyl. It's just that listening to music in the car is like it's my jam
for sure.
And I always say, like, with my own music even, I'm like, I think I write music for people driving around listening to music in cars, thinking about life at night while it's raining. Going 79 miles an hour.
The proper experience of Adam's music, you need to be driving in the rain.
That's my favorite thing. There's something about moving, being in that state of mind where it's like, just cranked up to the ears bleed levels. But anyway, that's what I'm listening to. And the song Don't Give Up, Peter Gabriel. Holy crap. The song is so good.
Doesn't the girl throw you off a little bit? Kind of throws me off when she starts singing.
Really?
Not off, just like takes me out of it.
I think maybe...
It's such a different texture.
I think maybe if...
Does that sound pretentious?
No. I mean, it's viable criticism. It's definitely weird.
Yeah.
I think if I heard it without it being some indoctrinated part of my history as a person.
There we go.
Then maybe I would question it more, but now I just appreciate it. And her performance to me, like I'm not necessarily a fan of her voice or tone and stuff, but I love it.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad I could say about it. And it's one of those rare, timeless 80s recordings. Usually you're like, ooh, 80s. But a lot of that record, or not a lot of that record, a few songs on that record transcend the time. But that's what I've been listening to. And I think after listening to Don't Give Up a million times in a row, I realized that was like the sentiment I was wanting to hear in my life. When I realized that, how stupidly simple that was, but how much I love that song, and I wanted Peter Gabriel to tell me not to give up. And then I wanted Chris Cornell to tell me that Steel Rain was coming down.
I thought you were going to say something about the end of the world.
Oh, I'm seeking a friend for the end of the world.
Looking for a friend.
Right. Who inspires you?
Adam Watts.
Oh, good.
So easy. God. This is inspiring. I'm going to go home and write This makes me want to pick up a guitar and play it.
I'll tell you one thing, man.
One thing, just one.
Very interesting having a conversation with headphones on. I've never done it before.
I like it.
It's like I'm right there, but I don't have to be right there.
You don't have to project.
I have to be an inch from your mouth, but it sounds like I am. I don't want to be an inch from your mouth ever. But this is good.
Why not?
Helps with focus. Who cares? Who inspires you? No, really though.
I'm serious. I wasn't joking. But that's a little awkward. So
no, it's actually feeding my ego in a really nice way.
Who? So if we're talking about a person.
Who inspires you? And why?
My daughter. My little one.
Really?
Of course. I'm always thinking like, I'm going to record this song and then she's going to hear it in 10 years. You know, like, is she going to like this? Yeah.
It's awesome.
She loves music. She picks up on music really, really quick. So yeah, I mean, for people that are listening, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and so I'm new to it. I'm just as you are.
Yeah.
I'm new to the fatherhood and all of its challenges, but it definitely changes all of your perspective on almost everything.
Yeah, it does. And it doesn't. It's funny.
Uh-oh.
What?
Don't say anything incriminating.
I heard Bill Burr recently talk about, he waited till pretty, his late 40s to have a kid. I don't know if he waited, but that's when it happened. Mm-hmm. And he was talking about how, like, he's like, yeah, you always hear the stories. People just my life changed on a dime. And he's like, when I first held my baby in the hospital, he's like, I felt nothing. And he's like, that's it. I'm a psychopath. It's for sure.
Confirmed.
This is confirmed. And
I didn't feel
right. I think
spiritual moment. I mean, it was, of course, my situation was chaotic. There was a lot of medical problems. So there was a lot of
more than most, right?
Stress, yeah.
Yeah. I felt a lot of things, but I didn't have a cathartic metaphysical wake up reality. But what I had is like a slowly growing, and I think this is maybe more common for a lot of guys, I guess, but like
anxiety.
As my relationship, like I had an instant fatherly, like dutiful thing.
Yeah, that just happens.
That was definitely instant.
Yeah.
Like I was like, okay, this is totally my responsibility, and there's no question. Even when it was like hard, it wasn't annoying, or I wasn't like rolling my eyes going like, what? Which if I was, maybe then I'd be the psychopath. But I think the more you interact with them, like my son's 3.5 now, and like the more interaction you get, and then the more you see, like, you're like the one, there's only one dad for this person.
Mm-hmm. Like
you're the one that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, it's so trippy to be like somebody's one thing.
Mm.
And that one thing is so important. Like that you have the ability to screw them up for life, and you definitely will to some degree in bad ways, but you have the ability to have such an impact on this person by what you do and what you don't do also.
What you show them, music or anything.
Yeah.
Expose them to all this stuff.
On every level, how you react is like unbelievably shaping for this little person. And I mean, they say like, there's this famous saying, and I don't know who said it, of course, but it's like, show me the child at 7 and I'll show you the man. Show me the boy at 7, I'll show you the man. It goes for boys and girls. But like there's something, like your personality is like shaped by the time you're that age.
Oh,
and
right,
that's like, that's when parents have the most influence. And obviously there's a huge genetic component that like transcends, there's the nature-nurture thing. But yeah, so I think I've been inspired by that, because I've been inspired to rise above the level of my own moods and rise above the level of my own, like, I don't know, whether it's laziness even, or just really mood though. Like I've found that, like they say, like if you just smile, you'll actually start to feel happy.
Right.
I think the same goes for if you just rise to the occasion. Like if I'm feeling bummed out and I just like, I really try to answer the call of his needs, whatever they are. Like, so if he comes to me and he's like, he does this thing every night where it's like he has to jump off the couch and like land on me like a pro wrestler or something. I don't know where. He just loves that rough and tumble play thing. Yeah. He's just like, he cannot get enough. But like, there are nights when I really don't, like the initial reaction is like, this is the last thing I want to do right now.
Right.
And when he asked me to do it, I'm like, this is happening. And I just think like, this is the most important thing in the world I could possibly do right now is like, and he'll always tell me like, I'll be like, okay, go for it. And I'll like move my laptop a little. Inevitably I'm on my laptop with headphones on.
Every night.
And I'll like move it over though. He's like, no, move your computer.
Oh yeah. He
Like,
needs
so
your full.
I'll move the computer. He's like, take your headphones off. Like he wants full attention.
Yeah. Just for the one thing.
Yeah. And it's freaking great.
And you have to, even if you have to force yourself to do it, then afterwards you're like, you're in it.
Yeah. And it's like, whoa, this 3.5-year-old is like holding me seriously accountable for attention.
It's a lesson in back to the being, you know,
Present.
flow state thing and being present. Yeah. Because they're just in it all the time. And if you're going to be around someone like that, then you have to be in it too. Otherwise, it's going to be super impossible. They teach you a lot, man. Also they teach you how tough you are. You know, I've been so many, just the thing where you're like, overwhelmed, but you have to take care of this person. You do it anyways. Like you're at your lowest bottom. You're exhausted, you're stressed, you're anxious, whatever. The day is long and the blah, blah, blah. It's like you do it anyways because you have to. And it's like, would I do that if there was another person depending on it? No. You know, you wouldn't.
Right.
It's like you find out how tough you are. You find out. I've learned many times what a wuss I am just from having a kid, you know. Even just sleep, you know.
Yeah.
Don't get the right exact amount of sleep. You still have to get up and do everything.
Yeah.
You just push through it. But it's good. It makes you tough.
Yep. It's a definite reminder of like what's important constantly. Especially because it's like paradoxical too. It's just like, it's not, often the things they need are like very not important. It's definitely not important that I play trains right now. You know what I mean? Like,
but to them,
yeah,
it is.
And I'll deny sometimes, but definitely not the perfect dad. But I really definitely, when something like that happens and you see this like pure soul that just wants to connect, saying no is a big deal. Like, okay, what am I saying no to? Is what I'm doing important, or is it important for him to know that he just doesn't like, I'm not his like plaything that's just there anytime he wants to just say go. But then again, it's like I'm going to look back on these years and be like, oh man, I wish he was 3 again. You know?
That's the one thing they say is like it does go by super fast when they're starting to grow up. You can't get it back, especially like you said, like these years.
Yeah, man.
If you miss it, you miss it forever, and you're always going to look back on that and just be like, dude, I was too busy for that.
And there's a small part of me too that's like, he's 3.5 though. Is he going to really remember? Maybe I'll just not do it.
He'll forget.
I don't remember anything when I was 3.5.
I don't either. But maybe you do.
It shapes him, man.
Deep down, you do.
That's the stuff that's below the surface. You say you're not transparent to yourself. Some of that stuff, transparent. I mean, parent is in the word. Trans
is also in the word. Just think about that one.
I will.
Sorry.
What are your non-musical inspirations? She asks. Oh, we already did that one. Bam, 2 with 1.
What was that?
Non-musical inspirations. We both chose non-musical inspirations.
Kids is a big one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So who inspires? Yeah. What are your they're kids. Boom.
That's a twofer.
So her first, the one who inspires you must have been music based. So, and we already mentioned that with who we're listening to.
I'm not kidding, man. I would say, okay, I'm not going to say it again. Never mind. Come on, baby. It's you, man. You've always been inspiring. And if you don't know Adam, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you do, then you know what I'm talking about.
I appreciate that, man.
It's true, man. I mean, look, he makes this kind of stuff, too.
Small black sticks.
It's not a pencil. It looks like a pencil.
Yeah.
It's deceiving. There's even an eraser little spot for it right there.
That should kind of be my thing. I make things and it's not the thing.
Yeah, just disappointment.
This is not a box.
But it looks like, nope.
Nope. Try putting something in it. Falls right out. This is not a box. This is a hole.
It's a trap.
But then can I make a hole?
Ooh, can you make a hole out of wood?
Then I'll make a box. This is not a hole.
This is a box.
Yeah. Can you share your workflow?
Ooh. Just say no as an answer.
It's impossible to share my workflow.
Share it.
It's a flow, you know. How can you share a flow? Like it's like ask me to share the ocean or a river. Can you share a river?
Yes.
Like, no, it ceases to become a river. It's now a glass of water. I scooped up the river with my glass of water and it's now not a river anymore.
Oh.
You can't share a flow.
But it never was a river. It was always water. You
Now
just
it's
called it a
glass.
river.
Yeah,
just
so you
call it
can't
that.
share something that when you share it, it ceases to become the thing it is.
So if you shared your workflow, it would become not your workflow? How does this work?
I could show you my workflow. You could experience the workflow. Okay, so I assume that you're talking about like,
Let's just say
Lisa's
you're
talking about, yeah, the workflow of creating music.
Let's say you're sitting down right here. Someone's in that room. Whatever. Singing.
Well, my workflow. There's a lot of different workflows. There's the collaborative workflow. So I guess the ultimate workflow. Let's just take this question as if she's asking us as solo artists. You've recorded your own stuff and released it. So this is like your personal most, I'm going to add to the question. This is your personal best workflow for writing a song.
Well, I was actually
song.
going to ask you something earlier and I forgot, but when you were talking about doing your own music as a solo artist where you do everything.
Yeah.
It's kind of a workflow thing. How often do you write a song, record it, done, mix it like all in one sitting or in one day? Because I know you've said you do that sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that the norm?
I would say that the vast majority of the time, I would say probably 90% of the time, I write it, record it, and mix it in one day. 90% of the time. And then
lyrics too.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
everything.
That's killer.
But I would say that's to like something that could be conceived of as being done. But then I'll often go back and I would say then 90% of that time I'll go back and maybe tweak the mix.
But that's just editing though. That's not like
Yeah, usually I like to do it in one, I guess you'd call it a sitting.
That seems like a more honest way to do it.
It really does feel like I'm capturing something. And
Yeah.
that if I don't really naturally, there's a lot of viable ways to create, but I don't naturally, with bridges, I would say with bridges, I would say I often don't mind. I feel like birthing a song is when you birth the verses and the chorus.
The meat.
That's like, boom, the song is there. And then I think there are benefits to writing the bridge on another day, or sometimes if it is the same day, I'll like move to a different instrument, or I'll have the first verse and chorus, and then I'll want to start recording so that I can be inspired for the second verse by the recording itself. And then I'll use, maybe when I go track the drums, I'll just like let the drums lead the bridge, or find some way to like, you know, because you want the bridge to be a departure to some degree or a new angle on what you've talked about already. So like I try to build that into my workflow.
So something else will take the inspiration lead, like a different instrument or something.
Yeah, it'll be just some way to snap me out of it and give a new perspective on the subject matter. But yeah, that's huge for me, man. I also feel like it's super important that I get the final vocal as close to the writing of the song as I can. I don't want distance. I want to be super in it. Like I want to, especially as I try to, as much as I can, to saturate every element with as much as much goop as I possibly can. Like
goop.
Like I want to be in it. I want to be thinking about all aspects of it. And like when I've written the lyric, like hopefully there's the lyric itself, but then there's this soup of stuff that isn't the lyric, but that's informing the lyric. And I want to be aware of all that. And I find that like later on, I'll lost a lot of the context or something. And sometimes I'll read my lyrics and I'll be like, man, I know that those two thoughts are connected and I feel it still, but I would have to sit there and stare at them for a while before I re-understand what's there.
Yeah.
Because my favorite way of writing a lyric is that the lyric is there, but it's made meaningful by the sound and the music itself, and like all those things are interacting in such a way to hopefully transcend it by itself.
Yeah.
And when all that's inside me, if I can record the vocal when I'm like experiencing that state,
sure,
I feel like there's something that's captured that's like beyond. You know, some people like, oh, I like to create some distance, or I want to go out and perform the song 100 times before I record it.
Right.
And that's a way of digging deeper into it. But for me, it's like, I want it all to be one thing. So I think my album Way Out, that has the most songs that were like written, recorded, final mix on the same day.
And you did that on purpose on that record, right?
Yeah, I allowed for it on that record the most.
Yeah.
It was kind of the idea behind that record in the first place, was kind of to see what was going on down there and just let it be what it is.
Yeah.
And maybe it had less forethought or less right brain, left brain toggling. I was trying to be like, this is my right brain record. This is just like all the stuff that's just down there. I'm going to let it be. Like if it's one thing, like if it's one little thing that I'm just repeating and developing, like one musical motif or lyric motif.
I love that.
Then fine. That's fine on this. That's fine.
That's my favorite, man. That's probably why that's one of my favorite records of yours, because I love that kind of stuff. Where it's just one kind of, like a song is one, like you said, like a motif or one idea, and it just gets developed and changes throughout the song. I love that kind of stuff.
Man, I love Philip Glass. Was a pretty big inspiration on that album, just philosophically, you know. Because he talks about, in the documentary Glass, I highly recommend it. Because he's somebody actually who's the opposite of what we were talking about earlier, where like he does not care what people think. He's like, if you don't like my music, fine. There's plenty of music out there. Go listen to whatever. Like there's the Beatles, there's this, there's that. Like right at the beginning of the documentary, he says that. He's like, I don't care. I really do not care what people think. Like, whoa, that's interesting. And then when you see that play out in the documentary, you see that that's not just only for his music. You know, he's got like a few wives, and even his current wife is like, you know, definitely not super happy with how obsessed with music he is. Like,
he don't care.
And that goes back to the narcissistic egomania thing. Like, I think when you are obsessed to that point, and music is more important than maybe your family or certain things, which I think a lot of musicians are prone to that. And I think it's because music is so freaking awesome. Like when you create something, it's like, you can't even believe that just happened. If you can just do that all the time, it's easy to get addicted to it.
Totally.
But anyway, so
it stays with you too. That's the other thing. Like, stays in your head if you're writing.
That's true. It haunts you a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's my kind of workflow for writing, at least lately, is I never do that. I never sit down and finish anything. It's just like, piece now, walk away, piece later. I think about it, and another piece of it, and then I finish a lyric, and then I come back to it. I don't think it's good necessarily. It's just necessary sometimes for me, but
it's not good for me. Then I don't get to hear enough of your music.
Well, that's the problem. Is I never finish anything. I just keep coming back and like.
So what's up with that, Cory?
I don't know. I'm getting there. I'm more of like a piece by piece building lately. I'm like more of a Legos kind of a thing.
Oh, here's a question for you then. One of my favorite songs that you've written is a song called She Deserves to Be Happy. Is that on iTunes?
I don't know.
Where is that?
I don't think it's anywhere.
It isn't anywhere?
I don't think so. Might be on iTunes.
maybe the podcast ends with that song.
No. Anyways, what was your question?
Maybe, okay. You guys got to hear it. She Deserves to Be Happy. That's a great song. How was it written? Did you do it in a little bit and come back and do a little more? Or I'm trying to build a theory around.
Oh, for sure. I don't think
Did you write it in one sitting?
No, I don't think I've ever done that, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Why is that?
How much of it do you think you birthed? I know it was a long time ago. It was probably 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of where I was. I don't know. It was definitely in chunks.
When you write songs, because lately you've been writing a lot of like musical pieces, right?
Well, I always start with that. You know, people are like, "Well, how do you what comes
there
first?
We go. That's
the lyrics
workflow.
or the thing?"
Okay, so that's a good workflow question.
No, I have to feel instrumentally something first. Like the chords or the changes have to do something before I can even.
So you have to build some sort of inspirational foundation.
Yeah. It's almost like they're separate, which I don't know. I would never tell anybody to do it that way, but that's kind of.
Yeah. I would probably tell somebody to at least try the way that I do it. Maybe I'm overconfident with that.
I'm just a guitar player. I've always been a guitar player, so it has to work on a guitar. And like there's a language to guitar playing, so I have to that has to happen first.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So when you write songs, do you have like a voice notes of like melodies? Or are you always like starting with guitar and then
it's not always guitar, but it's always an instrument for sure. But I feel like
have you ever written like, oh, here's a on the voice note?
I've definitely tried, but I don't think I've ever
that never really
finished anything. No. I don't know why.
That's interesting.
You have?
Oh my gosh. Tons. I mean, definitely I would say the majority of we're talking about workflow, so this would be like the very beginning of the workflow. Most often, I would say, comes from doodling around with some chords and then singing gibberish.
Yeah.
And making sure I record it. Because if I don't, it's gone. Just like a couple times in this conversation where things just flew out of my head. But I find that like if I can get into that flow state where no part of me is listening or watching to what I'm doing, but I'm just doing, just emoting and doing and not caring how well I'm doing it even. Sometimes like that's the most common way that I think I get results that feel right to me is like I'll just improvise. That's one thing is I think that writing is often just capturing improvisations that are somehow connected to a flow state. And then I'll be like, whoa, whatever just happened seemed like something felt good. And then I'll go back and listen to it. And I'll be like, oh, thank God I was recording.
Yeah.
There's the verse. And then I'll be like, was I saying any words? And then you start to sort of like try to decode what just happened and you start writing lyrics. And I find that's like a really important part of my workflow is to sort of capture moments.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing I was saying. Like you're looking for the feeling of something first and then you can follow it into writing the lyrics or writing the other parts or whatever.
And so
doodling. People should doodle more.
I think, which comes back to like a creativity thing. Like you want to, it's like a brain, it's like a right brain, left brain thing. It's like you want to be in a creative state and then you want to be in a state of being able to assess what you're doing and organize it, which is more of a left brain thing, and be able to go back and forth so that you're constantly getting something that has the chaos of consciousness and an emotion in it, but it's then governed by some sort of order thinking where you're like making sure that that it's good and that it actually works, and then you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that's been one of the most valuable skills to try to develop is the ability to go back and forth. And
it's hard, I
think your way of doing it is just a more unpacked way of doing that. Like you like to do something and then take some time away from it. And that's maybe a way for you to analyze it from a different perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Or judge it or be inspired by it on a different day. Does that work?
Yeah, or just it's a way for me to get out of my way, kind of. Because if you I think I've told you about this before, but I read this article, this Brian Eno article, and he's talking about using your subconscious. And when you do mundane things, like you're washing the dishes or take a shower, shower's the best because there's something like physical about it, but it also,
right,
you know, it's calming and it's like allows you to kind of process things. He was saying when you do mundane things, it allows your subconscious to work through things that you were thinking about, and it just effortlessly things will come out.
Yeah.
So I kind of use it as an excuse to just stop. Be like, I got to get my subconscious working. I'm out of here.
You know what I find that just popped in my head when you said that is like, I have noticed, and this is the first time I've thought of it in light of that idea, is I've noticed that when I'm recording, no matter what I'm doing, when I'm doing the engineering, mixing or editing side of things, this calm comes over me. Like, I'm about to do this thing that's very like, it's a craft part of it. Obviously, there's a lot of art in what you're choosing to do with those things, but like
the technical
I find
stuff.
that's like the musical shower. Like I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna go through and whatever. Like if I'm gonna like if I did a performance on the drums, like and I don't want to just do a million takes to get it right or something, and I'm like just editing it, like that editing process. It is like that. It's like washing the dishes.
Really.
And I'll be like, oh, I'm going to do this for the next 15 minutes. Yeah. And I think it takes me to that place where my subconscious starts to do that thing that, you know,
and that can lead you somewhere else.
Yeah.
To the next place.
I think that's a real valuable thing about that informs at least my workflow and processes.
But like that, I guess the question is, when do you know, how do you know when to do that? You know, they say that when you're, especially writing lyrics or as you're a writer, I've heard writers say like, don't edit yourself while you're writing. Just write it and then like come back to it and edit later. I always try to do that when I'm writing lyrics. Like I'm not, especially if I'm just typing it down. I'm trying not to like erase that word. Just write something and then go back and edit it later.
Yeah.
But like, how do you know when to do that? How do you know when to stop and go back to it?
When it's my own music, the rules are different because I'm making them as I go. So that's part of what I love about integrating the entire process is I'll just like, I'll write some lyrics.
Go to something else.
And then go to something else. And then come back to the lyric. Or
yeah, that's great.
I would say that most of the time, though, I'm like hammering myself when it comes to maybe lyrics and maybe the mix. I won't allow myself. Like I'm not the kind of person who's like, I'm going to take a walk or I'm going to do this because it's healthy to do it. Like I'll forget to eat and like kind of stuff like that's not healthy because I just come like, I'm not going to, I'm going to strangle this thing to the ground. Even if I really should take a break.
Yeah.
That's kind of the downside.
But it's worked for you.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe it's not for me to say.
Yeah, I don't think any of this stuff's for anybody to say. If somebody asks you how you do something creative, it's like, here's how I do it. But I would never want someone to say, this is how you do it.
Right. There's no right or wrong way. Earlier I was like, but I would suggest you do it this way. The only reason I say that is because I think there's a misconception about what a song is and what a song isn't. And I think that I'm a firm believer that like a little like phrase that I've been kind of using to describe this idea is like classical music is born on the page, jazz music is born on the stage, and pop music or popular music, like the song, isn't born until it's recorded. If only I had something that rhymed with age. And that it's record age. But like I feel like that's the case, is that a song, in order to benefit from all that a song is, in order for it to be infinitely copied and shared digitally, for it to be on Spotify and iTunes, for people to know what it is, has to be recorded. There has to be a recording of it. And technically, yes, you can have a song, you can have music lyrics and whatever, and you can go perform it. But I don't really feel like it's what we consider to be a song until there's the ultimate, hopefully, recording of that song.
Right, the definitive version.
The definitive version. And so I feel like if you can integrate into your workflow and your creative process everything that is a song. So like if you have no matter what quality you do it in, really, I mean, it's not like, I don't know, if you can capture the song, if you can integrate recording with writing, if you can put that together as an integrated process, as opposed to, I wrote the song, now I'm going to now I'm going to produce the song, and then now I'm going to mix the song. It almost is it's tearing the song apart in order to put it back together.
Yeah.
But if you can do those things somehow as closely as you possibly can manage as an integrated process, you'll find that now the lyric is informing the tones that you choose.
That's really cool.
And then the tones can re-inform the lyric. Like a lot of times, if I start recording before a song is completely written, sometimes like the sound of something will help me write the second verse, or it ends up inspiring itself.
Yeah.
And then
that's really cool, because I've done the opposite, where I've told you, I've had songs like that song Start Over. I had it for a long time, and I would play it, and I would get reactions from people, and then I was like, I got to record this song. This is one of the coolest songs I've ever written, but I never did because I didn't know how to do it. I tried a couple times, but the song lived for so long without a recording that then I was scared of ruining it or doing it wrong or not doing it justice, and then you just like get stuck in this zone because I didn't do anything like that.
Well, two things, dude. To be honest, I'm afraid of that. Like and it's happened before where I'll write a song and not record it, and then I'll be afraid to record it because I'll feel like, oh, I missed the best time to record it. But I think to prove the point that there is no right or wrong way to do something really is that, I mean, that song needed to marinate. And I think some songs probably do. Maybe, like, well, that's just, that's the way it ended up happening. But with that particular song, Start Over.
Sure.
You brought it in and we ended up, maybe I'm just thankful that we co-wrote it. But it was definitely a finished thing that, like, in some ways I wish you would have recorded the original version, because then I could have heard what that was.
Right.
But in another way, selfishly, I got to, be a part of it with you, and it's such a great song. And then, Ariel ended up recording it, and hopefully we'll release it. But
yeah,
that was...
Yeah, it worked. I was just glad it worked.
Yeah.
Like hearing it, like, I can't tell you like how emotionally satisfying that was, hearing that recorded, especially with someone else singing. That's a great singer and great guitar player. I was like, oh man, this thing lives. And I wrote that probably, I don't even know, man, not 10 years ago, almost, I don't know, 7 years ago or something.
Dang.
Talk about marinating.
Yeah, that's some deep marination right there.
Yeah.
That's more like a fine wine in the barrel.
Yeah, I just aged it.
Yeah, that's a cool song. I want to hear your version of it too. All right, on to the next question. This is a marathon of a podcast.
How long, where are we at?
We're at what?
2
hour and 50.
2 hours.
Let's see. What equipment do you prefer? I feel like she asked that for other people's sake.
What equipment?
Lisa, you don't care about the equipment. But I appreciate that.
What if she wants to invest in some stuff?
Yeah. What equipment would I prefer that you gift me? Is that what this is?
Does she want some free stuff?
I like... What equipment do you prefer?
It depends what you're doing.
It depends what you're doing. But if I were to like generalize, I would say I prefer equipment that enables me to create things that are timeless. So what I don't prefer is like equipment that is like flavor of the month, or that's so idiosyncratic that you can't use it again because you used it once. So like
specific colors and things to...
Yeah, like a good example that just popped into my head would be like the whammy pedal or something. Like a guitar sound that goes like wee, or something that's like, oh, like the first time you hear it, like that's amazing. And then you put it on your song, you're like, well, can't use that pedal again. Right. Like
That's a good way to put it.
And that's why I shy away from synths, and I like things that sound somewhat timeless. And of course, that's subjective, but
That's just like the thing I said earlier about trying to find music. If you don't know what you're looking for, just go to the classic stuff. It's like you just go to the classic gear, you know?
yeah,
Stuff that's
time tested and proven. It's part of the bedrock of music,
yeah,
which there's something to be said for that. Like,
totally.
and that's why, even though we're in the digital domain, and maybe this is part of really where we're at in the history of digital recording, but a lot of what's going on is modeling.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably an era that we'll go through or to some degree, but like, you want that thing that models the Neve and that models the Fairchild compressor and that models this and models that super accurately.
That's the guitar world too. It's right now, everything is like, everyone's trying to digitally model every amp and every,
Yeah.
whatever piece of gear.
And then there's those companies that are making plugins that literally look like nothing that exists, complete space age.
Mm-hmm.
And they do the things and more that hardware can do. And those, for some reason, I don't, even if I like what the plugin does, I'm like, there's something in me that pulls against it.
Yeah.
And I haven't come to terms with it yet. But I don't know. I just feel like I'm using some space age tool to make something that I don't want.
Isn't that funny how plugins, they make them look so visually
pizzazz,
real as a piece of gear? And
yeah, it's got shadows.
Yeah, totally. I think it's just the CLA 1073 plugin. You can do the black one or the blue one. And I guess there's a little bit of a difference.
A little bit of scratches.
You can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're different.
One's a little brighter or whatever, but just the look of it changes, and then that kind of changes your whole way you hear it almost.
Yeah, and I just got the Abbey Road reverbs, and it shows a picture of the room.
Yeah,
and you can move the mics around the room relative to where the speaker is.
I just learned that you can get rid of that picture, and I did it. I was like, oh, finally, I can get rid of this.
Really?
Because I don't know how to use it.
I like that picture. Yeah, but then there's also something kind of phony about
right, then you see the fake room, and then it reminds you that it's a fake room.
It's like a cartoon or a picture of the real piece of gear, and you're like,
a dial could just look like a dial.
What am I doing? Yeah, whatever. It just shows you that sometimes that visual things can really affect audio things. If I didn't have dimmers, I don't think I would have written one song. I need dim lights.
Which is funny because so many people are like, you never put dimmer switches in a studio. It's supposed to do something.
Oh yeah, we had to do some major separation of church and state of
just to do the
audio and lighting.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was all planned out.
Oh yeah, you can't have those things. You know that.
Yeah, I know. We did it, and the other, But I can see you just not caring. I don't care. I need the dimmers. I don't care if it makes a difference.
That's probably true. If you were to ask me,
if you could have one or the other.
You're going to have a buzz in all of your recordings. If you have dimmers, I'll be like,
get used to that buzz. You just find a way to notch it out.
Yeah, I'll find that anti-buzz plugin that looks space age, and I'll use it. Womp womp. All right, so where do you see the music industry in 5 years?
Nobody knows that answer. Do you?
I'll guess.
Take a stab at it.
Take a stab at this one.
I would say it's going to be better off than it is now, hopefully in 5 years.
I thought you didn't have an answer, dude.
That's not really an answer. It's just kind of a general.
You think it'll be better, you said?
I think if that was the question, is it getting worse or better? I think it seems like people are starting to figure it out. I don't know. To me, it feels like it.
In what way do you see it being better than it is now? You're talking about the music or the business?
I just mean the business of it and trying to monetize things in the age where the internet ruins the whole industry. And for the last 10 years, everybody's like, no one knows where it's going, and it could just, I don't know.
Maybe I agree with you.
Optimistic.
So here's what I think.
I think someone will figure it out.
I think that money really tends to define a lot of things in culture and in the world. So I think that the way it is right now, take a snapshot, isn't sustainable. If it stays like this, we're not going to have
great records.
Enough professional musicians.
Right.
Musicians need, if musicians can't monetize what they do, they can't do what they do.
Yeah.
Because in order to make great music, you have to be able to focus, and you have to be able to live an artistic lifestyle. No, to make your best music, I believe that you do have to make it a huge priority.
Yeah.
And I think if you have to work 8-10 hours a day doing something else,
Right, it's not going to happen.
You can't go that deep in the hours left in your day, or just on the weekends. Like, it's just, I think it's psychologically not sustainable. So if over time musicians can't make enough money to survive, and that's all I'm saying. Now, I'm not talking about superstars. I'm just saying, like, the middle class of musicians. Like, if that starts to disappear because there's not enough money coming from publishing and recording and touring and all that stuff wrapped up together, then we're not going to have musicians, and people want music. And if they're not able to get good music anymore because musicians can't monetize their work, then music will start to disappear. And then the people who sell music, like the companies that run the music, will start to realize, like, oh, I guess we need to start paying the musicians. And that's kind of what we're seeing. And actually, they just passed a bill called Music Modernization Act, which interestingly, Trump passed it, and both Obama and Bush, it was brought to them and they didn't pass it for whatever reason.
I didn't know that.
And I think Trump, being a businessman, saw, like, hey, oh yeah, we're in so many areas of the business, we're in the dark ages. We're like working from pre-internet ideas about how to monetize music. And since the advent of the internet and digital technology, like, just, file sharing and the idea that, there's just, you can put music everywhere on the web and the artist isn't monetized properly. There's been some things put in place that are going to make things a little bit more fair in terms of royalties and payments. And I don't, I haven't read up on the details. I'm glad it's happening, and I probably should know more about it, but I'm rooting for everybody that's been lobbying for that, because it's huge, man. So I think in 5 years is probably when we're going to start to feel the effects of it. Like, that maybe by then Spotify will be paying more. Whereas right now, like, 1 million plays on Spotify, I think, equals a handful of thousands of dollars. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it might be as low as 1,000, but it's definitely not more than $10,000. And to get 1 million plays is very difficult, so I think it just has to happen. So I believe that because people value music, and that, and like I said earlier, that making music takes focus, you're going to see, and we probably haven't seen the end of it. I think in the coming years, you're going to see way fewer professional musicians. There's going to be, like,
do you think
the super upper class, and then there's going to be, like, people with having to make money doing odd jobs.
But I agree, but I don't think that's going to make I don't think there'll be less music. I think, if anything, there's going to be more artists making music that just don't make the money, but it's like people are going to do it anyways.
For sure.
I mean, you can see that in certain genres that aren't as popular, but they still thrive underground or whatever, like rock or metal. I mean, there's those communities are always producing new bands because people are going to do it because they want to do it.
Right. But I just think there's this there's this, like, pivotal threshold. Like, here, I'll give you an example with like fighters or something. It's like, everybody knows that you can't be a champion level fighter if you also have a day job at Target. There's just no possible way you can compete with somebody who's training full time. Right. You just can't.
Yeah, you can't compete.
So I don't think an artist can compete. You're not going to get great art if you can only spend 10% of your time making that art. Yeah. You'll still make it. Like, I agree with you. Like, that art will still get made. I just feel like at some point somebody's going to realize, and it'll happen due to competition, I think. It'll be like, oh, this company, they're so cool, man. They sign artists that have day jobs, and they enable them to like maybe work part-time instead of full-time at their job. So they pay them a little bit of minimum wage. And then there's another label that's like, you know what? We're going to take a risk and pay for our musicians, our artists to work full-time. You'll probably see a difference in quality, I would think.
Sure.
You'd have to. At least over time, maybe not in two small samplings, but
that's a really good point.
I think in the end, somebody's going to be like, I could make more money if my artist didn't have to go work at Target today. And then they'll pay them more. And then that'll just, you'll see like the ripple effect of that is, you know, at some point, I don't know how it gets all the way to like Spotify, because they're not content creators as far as I know, although I hear they're getting in bed with the labels.
Really?
That's the thing that's been going around, is that like labels are actually part owners or stockholders in Spotify, and so they're in cahoots, but then the artist
left out
is left out. But that's, I think, part of what the Music Modernization Act is sort of trying to remedy, like advocating for artists, which is why like artists and companies like ASCAP are the ones who are really trying to push that. They're advocating for artists.
It's just funny because even just historically, as long as there's been a music industry, the artist has always been on the bottom of the totem pole in terms of like the business of it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it, but I get that the company, the record company or whoever it is, there's a huge risk and they lose tons of money. Like most bands get signed and get a budget and then they just get either shelved or they just nothing happens with them. I'm sure that's the majority. So they're definitely putting a lot of money out there.
A huge risk. They have a huge overhead.
Yeah, so they need to get paid. Otherwise the whole thing's not going to work.
But the whole thing's equalizing, man. It's so crazy, the difference. Like it literally used to take hundreds of thousands of dollars to make a record.
Right.
Because one person owned the studio, and the studio had $1 million console, and did it. And that's, if you wanted it to sound the best it could sound, here's how much that costs, based on all the different people involved. Man, now that everybody can, you know, get Logic on their Apple laptop for whatever, hardly anything. That's a huge part of it, man.
And plugins too, right? Don't you feel like plugins have just kind of changed the whole recording game?
Oh my gosh. Can of worms just opened.
She didn't ask about plugins, did she? Think so?
That's the thing, is like you lower the barrier for entry. It's almost like, hey guys, okay, we're gonna hold the Olympics still, but now you can just buy bionic legs at Kmart. Everybody has bionic legs, so everybody can run the same speed, and they're allowed in the Olympics. So like then running fast doesn't matter anymore, because everybody can just run fast. And I feel like, oh my gosh, this is a weird analogy, but I think some plugins with presets, or some, like if everybody can go buy the drums that were recorded at the best studio in Nashville or LA or London or whatever, and everybody has those drums, now a good drum sound doesn't mean anything. Right. Or now people aren't getting their idiosyncratic cool drum sound that they can get. They all just go like, I'll just get the good drum sound, and then it's like...
But you have to get that thing, because if it's completely average to have great sounding drums, like now if you hear someone recorded drums that don't sound good, it's like, get out of here with that. You remember like back in...
Or will it be cool? Like, whoa. I want bad sounding drums.
Well, if you, maybe. But you know what I mean? Like where you know, there's too much hi-hat, bleed in the snare or whatever, and everything sounds small.
Yeah, it's unacceptable now. Like you didn't have to do...
But 10, 20 years ago, it was just a crapshoot. You'd get a record and be like, oh, the drums aren't bad on this record, but whatever. I love the band, or I love this album or this song or whatever. Now it's like if it sounds bad, can't even listen to it. Like it's just off the table.
Dude, that's a super interesting aspect of this.
Especially with drums too. There's something about drums. Like if your drums don't sound good in a whatever rock pop mix, everything sucks. Right?
Yeah,
it just takes you right out of the.
But then it's another game of thresholds, because like I feel like
game of threshold.
A game of thresholds.
Sounds like a good mock up for a
Play
logo.
a game of threshold. I don't know. But I just feel like if people want things that are different, like I think we're drawn to what's different.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say that I don't know. Let's say you're like a young dude and every girl was equally hot except there was one girl who was like
ugly.
Who was weird looking. Like I feel like the
Novelty.
scarcity of that and the novelty of it is what makes it special. And
That's true.
There's something to be said for like it reaches a threshold, like where if everybody's using the same drums, I think the idea of good changes. Because when somebody comes,
right.
Here's a good example is like I think that started to happen a little bit with autotune, like where a few people released records that like had pitchy vocals, and it was something cool and different because it was raw.
Yeah.
Everybody got so used to things being perfect that it actually became a thing, and the average person knows what autotune is because people just abused it so much.
Yeah.
They didn't use it just as a tool to make things a little better. They like cranked it up to robot mode, or you know.
Maybe that's it. Maybe when it gets to the extreme, then it becomes, you know, out of fashion or whatever.
I think that's true for a lot of things because like the internet has changed everything though. Because now there's niches. There's niches, but the when the '80s got out of control with glam rock, Nirvana came in and said, "How about this?" And whenever there's a period of crazy boy bands, usually something comes in that's more raw that everybody goes like, "Oh, thank God somebody did that," or you know. An era of over slickness is often followed by an
Same
era
with country music, right?
grit.
Country pop music for a long time was like so pristine and clear, and then someone like Chris Stapleton or whoever, these like newer country artists that are a little more raw, like people just love it because it's
Totally.
just, it went too far, you know.
Yeah, the bro country thing was answered by Chris Stapleton and
It's cool.
who's the other guy? Turtles All the Way Down.
Oh yeah.
We have to give him a shout out because Sturgill Simpson.
Sturgill Simpson.
Yeah, it's like that they called it like alt country or something.
Yeah.
But that stuff is like people yearned for like a little more rough around the edges. Or simple. Chris Simpleton. He's not simple.
It's not nice.
But it's definitely like back to the roots. Okay. So we're gonna have a few one is definitely listener questions. This is segments. We've added segments to our repertoire here on the podcast. So one of the segments is stupid questions. I want to know what would be the worst animal to be attacked by to death?
Any of what do you mean? Worst animal? Can it extinct animal or just it has to be alive?
No, like an existing animal first.
Can't
I
say
want to hear
dinosaur.
I want to hear your extinct one too.
A dinosaur for sure.
Which dinosaur?
The T-Rex.
Okay,
I don't know if that'd be the worst. Probably be great.
it'd be quick.
Just
I
bites
think.
you right in half. Okay. Oh, with the worst?
Worst.
I might say like a mountain lion or one of those because I heard that they grab you by the head and they bite into your head.
Yeah,
And they shake you around and stuff. So you're, this is a horrible question.
that's demeaning. To be shaken around by the
It's
head.
disrespectful. You don't do
Yeah.
that to a human.
Dude, that is not cool. Yet, it's pretty cool.
Cool for who?
I just think that if you were killed by a mountain lion and there was video of it, I would probably watch it and think that was pretty cool video.
As opposed to,
I really miss Cory, but that's a cool video.
so is this based on what would be the worst video of my
I mean,
death?
it's the worst death for you.
Yeah.
But in terms of a cool video for me to watch, that'd look pretty cool.
Okay.
And fun to watch.
But that's probably like,
I've warned you already. This is just like,
oh, okay.
This is cool.
It's
like
not about me anymore.
No, it's just this is a cool video. So
Some sort of a cat. I think a cat.
okay.
They could scratch at you first.
Ooh, yeah.
Anything that would start,
And sneak up
Eating
on you.
you.
It's sudden.
I think anything that like takes its time Like I think
that's why a grizzly is crazy.
I was gonna say a bear. I think bears. Is it bears that will start?
They
eating
goof with you. Yeah.
Wait, I know there's an animal that is known for that. They just like start eating you before they don't care.
Yeah, who is that?
I don't want to know.
I think it might be bears.
It's a bear thing?
Or cats. It sounds like something a cat would do. Cats are
I hate
jerks.
Yeah, they're the worst. If they can claw at you, they can get you.
I asked my dad this question last night, and he, without any hesitation, as if he's waiting for somebody to ask him this his whole life. He just goes, "Oh, crocodile." And I was like, "Ooh, that's good." Ooh. But then I thought about it more, and I contested. Like, sure, croc seems crazy. I think it's like the living dinosaur. It's like the modern dinosaur.
Yeah, that's a monster.
It's definitely a monster. But I also thought, well, I think you're more likely to die by drowning in a croc attack, which is fairly quick.
Okay.
Whereas I think a lion or a grizzly, that's pretty bad.
You just lay in there.
And then I thought, dying by lethal snake bite would be pretty crazy because
venom.
Venom. Like there are snakes that like basically it turns your blood into just thick. It basically like deliquefies your blood.
So slowly.
And then my dad said, "How about Ebola?" And I was like, "That's not an animal, but it is a living
virus,
like a virus, like where you
that's
just
horrible.
Liquefies your organs."
Yeah.
Being liquefied or deliquefied.
Oh my gosh, this is a horrible question.
Okay, now what's the best animal to be killed by?
The quickest, man. Probably the biggest. Just step on me.
Let's just go great white shark. It bites your head off.
Yeah, because like the drowning thing, right? It's quick, or it's quicker.
You bleed out pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't bleeding out known to be kind of like euphoric?
Oh, I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, is there an animal that like you die good? Hurts so good? Some like anesthetic death?
Yeah, like maybe there's something that bites you and there's some sort of a...
you stop fighting?
Well, it's something that like numbs you.
I think we're inventing animals now.
A unicorn would be the worst.
Anesthetic rex. Unicorn death.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be stabbed by a unicorn. Actually, I would.
Beautifully impaled by.
Yeah, it would be awesome. Talk about a good video. I mean,
that's cool.
Rainbows, unicorns.
All right, that's stupid questions.
Insert musical sounds here.
Okay, so we have a few questions that came in as we were yapping. Okay, from @Albert Avery. What's up, dude? Broken City. What's up? World of Percussion. Do you ever encounter writer's block? How do you get around it?
Of course.
And how often do you take breaks from music-related things to refresh yourself, if you do? All right, we touched on this a little.
Yeah. Just go take a drive.
Do you ever get writer's block?
Of course. I have it right now.
As a result of this
more often than
podcast?
not. Yeah.
Really?
But that would be my thing. Like you gotta just, it doesn't have to be a big thing. I mean, just driving. I don't know about you, but I write the most lyrics when I'm driving, which is not good because you gotta write or whatever, but.
This counters your earlier thing of doing music.
Counters?
First. That's cool. You write lyrics. Do you write lyrics to things or just brand new lyrics?
I mean, no, not brand new. I mean, like if I'm working on something and I'm stuck.
Yeah.
I know myself, and the best thing I can do is just like get away from it for a minute.
So going on a drive.
Else. Drives are great. Drives, showers. Those are two big ones. Yeah, I think you just gotta sometimes you hammer your creative brain too hard, and then you have expectations that are too much. If you just kind of like just get something to get you out of that.
Yeah, man.
You can let your subconscious kind of work it out. Because I think that's what you're. Not that I know about the brain or anything, but from what I've heard,
you have one.
Subconscious is always trying to make sense of the world, right? Like behind the scenes.
That's why you need to sleep. Yeah, because it like empties your subconscious out.
Right. Dreaming.
But yeah, so what were you saying? That you need to
just
find something
else.
to sort of
get you out. It could be quick too. It could be like take a walk or something.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, I've experienced writer's block, and
How bad?
pretty bad.
Like how long?
At least 14 inches. I think, well, here, okay, so I'll be pretty vulnerable and upfront about this. So the worst writer's block I've ever experienced was as a result of going on a very low dose of an antidepressant, anti-anxiety medicine, an SSRI. Like the very lowest therapeutic dose of it. Was going through this really hard time, and I just thought, I'm going to try this, and realized that this is after like 8 months. Like it seemed to work. Like, oh, cool. Like, and in fact, like
Worked making you feel better.
yeah, like, and it was actually the period of before my son was born. Like I kind of was just like freaking out about being a dad and like bringing a person into the world that's sort of like me, and I'm like, that just seems mean. Like
to that person?
yeah, like I'm bringing a person in the world, like, wow, no.
Giving them all your
It brought me back to like, you know, things about my childhood, and just there's a lot of the things that songwriting actually helped me with, just like all this, these thoughts and feelings and craziness going on inside, that it's like, dude, if, you know, I felt like having a son, it was like I was like deliberately doing that to someone. Like potentially he was going to be a little bit like me. Anyway, so just had a million different things that kind of freaked me out. But so it definitely, like, first 8 months, like once it kind of kicked in, it was like hard to get on it, and almost whatever. So once I was on it though, it was like, oh wow, like I realized how much chaos was going on in me at any given time that like was stopping me from thinking well. Like whatever, some reactionary thing or like little internal struggles. And that like had lifted. And all of a sudden I felt like my brain was like a computer. It's like, whoa. Like
working correctly.
I was like, usually there's an emotion right here that would like catch me.
Right,
and I'd be like, that's not there. And I can just keep thinking. And then I became, maybe it was some subtle or maybe not so subtle, like manic state that it put me in. But whatever it was, dude, I was annoying everybody because I was like hyper verbal.
Oh, wow.
And I wanted to like think through everything and talk through everything, like to the ultimate, like until everything was worked out. Like, because I just felt like I saw the Matrix.
You just go right through the middle of it.
It was so weird. And then that kind of wore off. And then I realized after a while, like, whoa, I was like, I haven't recorded a song, like a solo music song in like months and months and months. Like, what is going on? This is so weird. And I felt like a failure. Like one thing that I think I secretly took pride in is just my output. Like I was a finisher. Like I wrote a lot, and I was experiencing that cool thing of like you create something and then it's done and there it is and boom.
Then you gotta do it again.
Yep. And that like had all but stopped. Like very few songs were getting written. And so I actually Googled it. And it was, I Googled like SSRI and creativity. And it was like message boards.
Yeah.
It killed my creativity and that's what I do for a living. Holy crap, all this stuff. And so that was the biggest writer's block. It was actually medication induced, which is pretty sad. So I started,
but also great because then once you realized it, you could just fix it.
Yeah, but then it was like, woof. So I started weaning down, and literally when I like had weaned down to like half the dose, all of a sudden this part of me that I didn't even realize it had left, but it came back, and I started thinking about like, oh, whoa, I had all these realizations about stuff, like, I don't know, every aspect of life. It just being attached to my emotions again in this specific way.
Even if they're negative emotions.
Yeah. And because I was never at the point, thank God, ever of being like anywhere near suicidal or whatever. It was bad enough to where I was like, I need a boost. I need some help here. But anyways, when that old part of me came back, it was like, hey, look at you, bro. Like my old buddy Melancholy was back.
Right.
And that's when I wrote When a Heart Wakes Up, which was the title track of my latest record, and also was the song that, like you mentioned, like it was that song that made me feel like, ooh, now an album is starting to emerge. So that was like a huge moment for me. But anyway, so that was like one aspect of it. But other times I experience writer's block, I try to fight through it, or I don't let it bother me. Two things.
That's hard.
One's a mature one, like a little bit of a thing that I've grown to accept. Like, you know what? I'm not going to force it. I know that the best music comes when it really wants to come.
Right.
But I also believe, I heard Bono said this, if you have writer's block, you can always write about writer's block.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty...
That's more specifically like lyrical writer's block though, right?
Maybe that's what he's talking about. But I guess you could always like, yeah. It depends, I guess, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Because
from him, he's the singer, lyricist.
Yeah. I guess if you're blocked, the idea is, I guess, Nike. Just do it.
Well, that's what you said. You just ignored it. How did you do that? That's hard. Or just whatever you said. You just pretend like you didn't. You didn't.
Well, that's when I think
it's hard.
It's craft. Like, you know how we talked about, like...
You go back into the technical part of it, maybe, for a little bit?
Like, you play music, then the music plays you. We said something like that earlier. Like, when you're trying to, like...
Sounds like something you would say.
I don't think I even said that. But you turn emotion into a physical thing, and then it comes out of the amp, and then that inspires you.
Oh, yeah.
I think the idea of, if you have... Basically, writer's block is like, I'm not inspired. So if you're not inspired, if you have some level of craft...
You can fall back on that.
You can say, like, okay, I'm going to do what I know. And then I'm going to trust that if I just, like, I know how to make a beat, and I know how to build a chord progression, whether I'm inspired or not. So just do that. And maybe that'll come back at you and inspire you.
And maybe it won't. Because I've had that where I'm just
definitely like, maybe it won't.
I just have to make myself do something because I feel that thing where it's like I haven't been doing enough. I'll just do just enough to like start something and then walk away from it. Yeah. And at least it makes me feel like I'm not stuck.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I started something. I'll come back to it later.
I guess in some way, then you're at least proving to yourself that you're not lazy.
Right.
You know?
That's better than nothing.
Because writer's block can be so many things. Like, I gave an example of it being actually physiological due to a medicine. But then there's writer's block due to fear. Like fear that what you make isn't going to be good. Oh, dude, and that brings up the other reason I've had writer's block, which is like, if I've convinced myself that the music I make isn't going to mean anything, that it's not going to, nobody's going to care,
right? Then
that can easily block me. Like I've noticed that, like, oh, what's the point? Another song that I wrote that nobody's really going to care about. Like, that'll definitely turn me into a writer's block machine. And a writer's block machine is a machine that doesn't do anything.
It's a jacked up machine.
Yeah, it's just a frozen motor.
This machine sucks.
Who built this thing? Doesn't even machine. Yeah. But I would, like, if you're experiencing it, Albert, I would say fall back on craft, and then also maybe do some self-analyzation of, like, is there something you're afraid of? Are you paralyzed by some sort of insecurity or something? And give yourself some grace to, like, value what you do.
Or maybe you just need to try something different.
Yeah, let yourself suck, take a risk.
Yeah, try something you're not used to doing. Pick up an instrument that you suck on and see whatever.
Yeah. Change of scenery, like you said, go for a drive. But, like, maybe you've defined maybe your expectations for yourself too much to the point where you've paralyzed yourself.
Change of scenery is big too. Like, if you always sit down in the same room when you're writing, maybe go to a different place and try it.
Yeah, go to a different place, go to a different instrument. That was big for me when when my band broke up, and playing guitar to me felt like I was treading old ground.
Yeah.
When I went to piano, it was like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's when I wrote the Murder Yesterday record. Most of that piano is record. Most of that record is piano based songs, which, like, it helped snap me out of the writer's block, which was more about like, oh, the band, guitar.
Right, it reminds you of the thing, yeah.
Yeah. Good question.
It's a tough one.
I think he had... Yeah, okay. How do you get around it? We talked about that. Okay. Aselda music. What's up, Caitlin? Have you ever felt like you were losing your passion or joy for creating music? If so, how do you recharge and rediscover your passion in a sense? Not in a sense, but in a sense.
How many words?
Your passionate innocence.
3 words.
3 words. Yeah, we kind of touched on that with what we just were talking about. Have you ever lost your passion or joy for creating music?
Try something different.
Yeah, I mean, when I've lost it, it's usually has to do with some deep false belief that it doesn't matter what I do. So recharging and discovering, I mean, lately that's been, a lot of times I'll use, I really like working with my hands and like creating something physical, because I think I've spent my life creating music, which is this ephemeral, I don't know what it's like. You could say it's a file on a computer, but I don't know. There's something about when I created a thing, you know, that tended to sort of like recharge me.
Sure, that makes sense.
And then, you know, I've been getting out in nature, like, is recharging for me. And then also relationships, like living some life so that there are things to be inspired by. Sometimes I expect music to inspire itself, and that's when it's like very a snake eating its tail.
Well, inspiration is a weird thing, because I don't think you can just always be inspired by the same thing over and over again. Right? You have to, like, and by its nature, it has to be kind of new to be inspired by something. So maybe you just need to find a different place to get inspired from. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer than that.
I know. Well, I've found that not expecting to necessarily enjoy it is sometimes helpful for me. Like being willing to
clock
do the work,
just work,
or being willing to write about things that I might be unaware that I'm not willing to write about. A lot of times that causes writer's block or causes me to not enjoy it, or like I've lost my passion or joy for creating music because I'm not letting myself create the music I want to create, because I've talked myself out of it. That's a big one. So I think not judging yourself and going like, I'm going to create this whether somebody cares or not, because it's just something that I need to say, or, ooh, there's an area of life that is bothering me, but I'm not willing to let it into my music because then it's too vulnerable or I'm not ready. Like that, taking that, I did that recently. Maybe that's why I'm bringing it up, is like I decided like that I was going to write about a subject that I needed to write about, and that I wasn't.
That you didn't before.
Yeah. That's couldn't be more vague. Cool. Okay, then there's one that's Broken City related, which I'm going to screenshot that. Sebastian Marcel, because we'll be doing a podcast with Mike Jackson this week also, and we'll save that one for you, for that. Jim Wunderlich, Jay Wunda, do you still have a VHS tape emoji of 10 Summoners Tales? So I had the Sting VHS of like the 10 Summoners Tales, like live recording at Sting's castle. And you know what? I actually think I might have recently thrown that away when we moved. But I also, there was like a couple VHSs. Like I had like a Simon Phillips drum video VHS and a Dave Weckl one. And I think that was in there too. And I'm like, I can't throw these away. It just
remember how
wrong.
expensive those were? The instructional VHS? Yeah. Dude, they were like $80.
That's right.
And to order them, I had a couple guitar ones, and they were so expensive.
That's because they're selling like 500 of them, and it costs like 20 grand to make it.
Yeah, there's a lot of materials involved.
How crazy was it when they could just control media like that? Now it's like it goes online, and it's like everybody steals it. The bad old days. The answer is I think I do still have it. do you still have a VCR? And is your question, can I borrow it? And then somebody else, Angus. That's not it. Is that a name? Because I can't say it.
Angus.
Shy. ANGUSSHSIEH. That is freaking awesome. That's cool. Glad you've been waiting for it. We're happy to be back. And Cory's happy to be here for the first time.
Yay! Second time, bro.
Oh, first time as a host, as a co-host is what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah, Cory, you can go back and watch on the Broken City podcast, Cory. We did it upstairs, and you played a riff.
Oh, yeah, it was upstairs.
From Ages.
Yeah, we were talking about touring and
check this
riffs.
out. The band is Ages, AEGES. And one of the songs that Cory sings co-lead vocals on, which he co-wrote, is a song called A Reason Why. iTunes, Spotify, love that song.
It's out there.
It's bad ass. It is bad butt.
It's bad. Bad ass. It's rocking.
All right, did you get any questions?
I did not. I just got some random spam comment.
Rude.
Super rude.
All right. I'm going to check this one other area of the world. I doubt I got any questions here. This is my I have an Instagram called Adam Watts Creations, and it used to be I had this little brand for my leather stuff that I was making called AMW
root beer.
Human Decor.
That's right. I had a watch and I wore it until it broke. It wasn't a real watch.
My stuff doesn't really last, guys.
It was just, I wore it a lot. It just one of the little stitches came out. It didn't really break. It just, I still have it.
I'll fix it.
Yeah, you should probably fix
Guaranteed for your life, not mine. Cool. That's listener questions. Appreciate that, you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully we answered them coherently in some fashion or another. All right. I think we're about to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, man. My ears hurt from these headphones.
Really?
Yeah, you don't get the ear hurt? Maybe I got weird ears.
I gave you the crap headphones. These guys, man. These are the mixing headphones from...
I always get this, though. No matter what headphones. If I had headphones on for too long...
These are the open ear ones for mixing, and I can wear them all day, and I have before.
What's open?
Yeah, when you take them off... when you take them off. If you just have them on...
They're great when you take them off.
You can hear the room easily. There's no blockage. A lot of headphones, they try to block it out.
Yeah, these are really isolated.
These are open, so if I'm listening to these, laying in bed next to my wife, she can hear what I'm listening to because it just comes out the side. So if I'm cranking music, she can't sleep.
What's the point of that?
It makes them sound more natural because the sound isn't confined to your ear. It's it's ventilated, but you can also have conversations with headphones on. So it just sounds open. Ain't that interesting? All right, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back every single
day.
Week. Every single day if you listen to the same podcast 7 days in a row. And I believe we're going to be calling this Broken City Music Podcast. Before it was Broken City Artists. And so just to help with search engines and whatnot, this is going to be music related, but it's going to be about whatever. And we're going to be your podcast buddies from here on out. And one other thing is we, in order to help make this possible, we're looking to get your support if you feel like supporting. And we will have a Patreon page, which will be a link on the screen somewhere, magically appear. And then also there's, I already have the Adam Watts Patreon that you can go to that, and that'll help support this and my educational endeavors and my solo music and all the things that don't naturally really make money, but that I'm passionate about and that hopefully will make life better for more than just me, if possible.
And give us ideas, comments or whatever things you want to hear people talk about.
Comments, topics, whatever you want, man.
It's a very broad genre here. So
yeah. See you next time. Good night and good morning.